left turns, it's 90 right, 90 left, and then it starts to level out a little bit, but the bottom road is prone to getting a lot of water coming in off the sides. So what you're going to find is that the riders are really going to have to pick the line. Last time we had bad weather.
Hello and welcome to the Elite Road Race Championships of Great Britain. This is the Women's Elite National Road Championships, incorporating the Under-23 Championships as well. 63 miles, 101 kilometres. Dismal conditions here, but the finish and start area here in iconic Lincoln. Wet and windy conditions are going to prevail today. We've had a spectacular few days racing over the last couple of days. We've had the Time Trial Championships on Thursday. We also had the Circuit Race Championships here in the heart of the city of Lincoln, finishing in the exact same place as today's championships finish. But today we have two races. We have the Elite Women. They'll be starting in just a few minutes' time. There's a neutralized rollout to the start point here in the centre of Lincoln. A few hearty souls out supporting. And then we have 8 laps of this beautiful, iconic circuit, featuring the fearsome climb of the Michael Gate. And it's very steep, cobbled slopes. It's only short, 200 metres long, but its average is 11% and pitches up at its maximum at 20%. And it should give us an absolutely spectacular, exciting, difficult race today. This race really does have it all. Let's have a little look at what the course is today. It's one that many of you will know very well, but if you haven't seen it before, this is what is on offer. We start on Castle Square in the shadow of Lincoln Cathedral. The course heads north up Burton Road and Middle Street before swinging left and eventually down a technical descent through Burton Village, and then eventually left again onto the flat and exposed A57. Another left on Long Keys Road takes us back towards the city centre and the iconic climb of the Michael Gate to finish in Castle Square. And there it is, 12.8 Ks, total distance of 101 kilometres over the 8 laps. It should equate to around 3 hours of racing. And alongside me, to talk us through the race today, a rider who knows this circuit very, very well indeed, is Hannah Walker. Hannah, this is the British Championships, of course, an important race, an iconic race. Everybody wants to win, but especially on a course like this, because there's nothing quite like it, is there?
Good morning. No, certainly not. This is one of the most iconic courses over the last few decades, and more recently since 2015, when the British National Championships were here in Lincoln, so that for the second time in 6 years hosting the National Championships. And the atmosphere is always incredible, the atmosphere, the fans, and when we had the Lincoln Grand Prix in the years after the National Championships, it's such a thriller. And to win atop of Michael Gate into Castle Square, it is very special.
It certainly is. We have, over the last few days, well, including today, there's 10 British Champions jerseys to be distributed. And today's race for the women does indeed incorporate the Under-23 Championships as well. So we'll have 2 championships running concurrently. And the defending champion, Alice Barnes, is in very, very good form for Canyon SRAM. We'll have a closer look at this climb of the Michael Gate. It's one that both of us know very well. As you can see, very difficult cobbles, only 200 metres long, and I can tell you it is very, very difficult. Halfway up, it pitches up at 20%, and it's whatever way you look at it, this is a challenging climb. Short, but certainly not sweet.
It's certainly not. It's a real leg slinger, and you can see the gutter with the smoother section of road. That's where lots of riders will try to get in. There's only so much space though, and it's a little bit of a risk, isn't it, to also clip your cranks, your pedals on there. And it's also, the climb is hard, but it's also that fight to get into the bottom of the climb, and the positioning is so vital.
Definitely. We've got 8 laps of this circuit, as I mentioned before, but as you quite rightly pointed out, Hannah, this can be, although it's one of the most enjoyable, thrilling races to ride and physically demanding, it's probably one of the most stressful races. It's like a mini Flandrian Classic, isn't it? And as you said, the battle for the bottom of the climb, because it's so narrow, coming up at pace as well, is it's stressful, but there's a certain beauty within that. But it's I can remember it many times. It is one of the most stressful races out there.
It certainly is, and throw all that into the mix, along with the weather conditions today.
Yes.
You just saw the
Not
picture.
brilliant.
No, it's not, and we've had some rainfall over the last few hours, and that is set to continue throughout the morning, on and off intermittently. So it certainly adds another dimension into the mix with the slippery cobbles.
They're going to have to really work out the correct tyre pressure today, because if you get it wrong, especially through that chicane, they won't be carrying quite the same amount of speed that we saw the other night in the Circuit Rate Championships, where we were treated to some magnificent racing across men's and women's. What a ride that was by Jo Tindley on local soil. I wonder how she's feeling today, because that was nothing short of magnificent, was it? And she clearly has marked herself out as one of the ones to watch.
It was superb, wasn't it? A smashing ride there from Jo Tindley, and she wanted that title so badly. She'd been trying over the last few years, and on Friday she took the opportunity. She grabbed it with both hands, and it was a magnificent victory.
We're going to look at some of the riders to watch now, Hannah. I do agree, it was a wonderful victory. Talk us through some of these riders.
Yeah, here is Alice Barnes, who is the defending champion in the road race. She's already won twice here at Lincoln, when it's been the Lincoln Grand Prix. Hannah Barnes, of course, another defending champion when she took that title up in Stockton. Shackley, who was accompanying and helping Lizzie Dinan at the Olympic Games back in Tokyo. A young rider who's up for the under-23 title as well, but can certainly take the elite title along with that. Anna Henderson has been in superb form throughout the whole year. A classic style course really suits her. She, of course, won the Time Trial National Championships on Thursday as well. Pfeiffer Georgie, another one who's one to watch, took her first professional victory a couple of weeks ago, along with Josie Nelson, who has just turned professional. She was spotted from a Belgian club team from the High Tech Products and has signed with that team. And we already talked about Jo Tindley, one to watch, who took the Criterium National Championships on Friday evening. Joss Loudon could be a real dark horse for this one, the world hour record holder, who broke that record back in Grenchen in Switzerland a few weeks ago. So a danger one to watch. Eiley Gardner, I think for me, could be another danger, who could be relatively unknown within this field. She's an incredible climber, and she's got such an engine on her. And the last one to watch, Sophie Wright of Ali BTC Ljubljana as well, and she's been in great form at the Women's Tour just last week.
That was certainly of any rider coming into this race with the Women's Tour in their legs, if they've recovered, will certainly set them in good stead. But this race really has it all, and we talked about the rain. There's also a fair bit of wind blowing today. We're just looking at we saw the flag flapping atop the cathedral, the Union flag. We've got a wind of around 22 kilometres an hour blowing from a southwesterly direction, and that will make a particular part of this course very, very interesting indeed. We saw the route map earlier on. We drop off Burton Village, head onto the A57 past the racecourse on Salisbury Road, and that is a really wide open, very, very flat bit of road. We understand there will be semi-closed roads here for the British Championships. The council here and the organisers have done a fantastic job, and I think we do need to recognise the Lincoln Grand Prix organisers who have incorporated the British Championships into this race. So effectively, in winning this, you'll have won the Lincoln Grand Prix, added that to your Palmares, and also the British Championship. So two classics, as it were, for the price of one.
It's not bad, is it, for the one effort? And Dan Elmore and his team within the organisation, along with the backing with Rafa as well for the Rafa Lincoln Grand Prix. It's certainly a special one. You'll get the iconic Lincoln cobble as well for the victor at the end as well. So it's a prestigious one, isn't it, Matt?
It certainly is. Well, the first edition of the Lincoln Grand Prix, before women actually rode it, was way back in 1956. So it is the longest running established single-day classic in the UK. Sadly, a few of the big races over the years have fallen by the wayside, but this is a race, barring I think just 1 year, of course, and that was because of COVID-19, as we well know. That's where we've got our first championships, national championships, in essentially nearly 2 and a bit years, isn't it? The national championships generally end of June, just before the Tour de France. So Alice Barnes has spent nearly 2.5 years in that jersey, so she's probably got so used to riding it, she's going to really, really miss it if she loses it today.
She certainly will, and also taking the national time trial title as well in Norwich in 2019. So for her, I know she wants this one. She wants to try and defend this title as anyone would in the road race. But when you look at the parkour and the attributes that are needed to take the victory here, Alice Barnes has to be one of those favourites.
Definitely. She didn't. Interestingly, there was a few riders who opted to not ride the Circuit Race Championships. Her sister Hannah did. She looked very strong. Finished 4th, just narrowly missed out on that bronze medal, but although she couldn't quite match the firepower of Joe Tindley and the fact that she had numerous teammates, I mean, you have to take your hat off to Joe Tindley's team, the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes squad. They really kind of marked her out a bit, but to me Hannah did look in great shape.
And another rider who's come off the back of the women's tour, also Paris-Roubaix as well. And for Hannah, you see that strength. We saw that in the Criterium race when she came to the front, she made an acceleration trying to close the gap to Joe Tindley. And although she wasn't making an explosive attack to try and close the gap, when she was on the front, you could see she's in good form, she's in good shape. And a rider who has been in the UCI Women's World Tour races and on that pro scene for around 6 years now, so she has that strength in her. She knows how to race a race like this when it starts to unfold.
I think today's course will really suit her as well. As you said, the Paris-Roubaix in the legs, it's certainly the Michaelgate climb will pale into insignificance really compared to the cobbles that they went over just a few weeks ago. There's a lovely shot of the rain. And a lovely close-up detail of the cobbles as well. They really are harsh cobbles as we go up at the Michaelgate. There's several different stages. There's some quite narrow ones. Over the top they're bigger, and you go through that little chicane which we became very familiar with the other night, and then we continue over the top. And the interesting thing, or the difficult, challenging thing about the Lincoln Grand Prix, after the climb, the descent doesn't come for about 3 miles. So it just stretches out. There's no real opportunity to rest. You're in the red over the climb, and quite often if you want to stay in contention, you're in the red or at threshold for another kilometre or two over the top before it even settles down.
And by the time you get to that descent, if you get back on, you have that moment to recover. Yeah. Then you're into the narrow country roads, and then once you make that left turn onto the A57 where it's wide open, if the wind's blowing, there's a potential there for crosswinds if you're on the wrong side of a split. Although it's not long enough to do some real damage, if you're already into that red zone, if you're already starting to feel that fatigue set in, it's not long before you make that left turn up through the feed zone, which is another sharp, draggy leg stinger section.
Yeah, something we haven't. It's got no real. We haven't really discussed that, but I do agree that little drag up through the feed. It's a long climb. It's probably about kind of 600 metres, isn't it? It kicks up at the top at about 10% before you then drop back down. And that particular point on the course is often your last opportunity to move up to get into position. So you've got to spend a bit to actually get into a good position for the bottom of the climb. So it's a real that kind of 1 kilometre run into the climb is very technical and lots of key points to try and get right.
It certainly is, and throughout the whole course, the positioning is key. If you make one mistake in that feed zone section, or even over the top of there where you have that fast descent before you make the left into Michaelgate, if you're out of position, you could find yourself chasing for a long time and having to use so much energy.
Well, we got a slightly delayed start. We heard a few moments ago that the start had been delayed by just 5 minutes. So there is a neutral run to the top of the climb. They will actually start here at the top of the climb, but there is a neutralized run out. Over the years, there's been various places where the race has actually started. Quite often they'd start at the Yarborough Sports Centre and do effectively half a lap and then commence the racing. But today, we are going to be starting in at the Market Square here. That shaves off, I think when Lizzie Deigman took the title, it was 107 Ks. Today it is 101. and 8 complete laps on this circuit. So just under, we reckon, about 3 hours, maybe 2 hours 50 of racing, depend on how aggressive the race is, and also how the weather conditions play their part as well.
It will make a difference depending on the weather conditions. If we see another downpour of rain, that could add some effect to the race if the wind picks up as well. And as you say, depends how the race unfolds. If it's an aggressive attacking race, we've got several teams with strength in numbers. As we mentioned before, the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes team, also the Skoda DSI Cycling Academy have strength in numbers. Drops Le Col have also a strong team around Joss Loudon, Elizabeth Bennett as well, who is an under-23, so will be vying for that under-23 title, along with April Tacey, who is a really bright up-and-coming talent.
Yeah, she's very explosive, is April Tacey. She's got a very, very good sprint. They've got Alice Towers for the under-23s for that team. Actually, got 3. They've got Anne Elizabeth Bennett as well, as you just mentioned. So that looks like that might be just one of the riders rolling through. So hopefully we'll get underway very shortly. And there we go, just to confirm that the start is actually now being pushed back to 9:15, so a bit more of an opportunity for us to have a natter about the Lincoln Grand Prix and its history and the technical nature of the race itself. We talked about that, the run into the Michael Gate, that funnel, that kind of pinch point. What about the descent through Burton Village? In these conditions, even in the dry, that descent through Burton Village, that's where the race loses all the elevation in a very, very short order. 143 metres of elevation per lap. But that climb with its right and its left under the bridge, if you get that wrong in the wet, that could be a real key part of the circuit.
It could be very tricky, couldn't it? And you want to try and lead it from the front. And if you're too far back, you could find yourself on the wrong side of a split. It's such a sharp right-hand bend after that fast descent as well. So important to make sure, again, throughout this whole course, positioning is key, Matt.
Well, talking of positioning is key, it's always very key in criteriums. Circuit races in particular. Just to take us through to the start of this race, we're going to take a little look back at some action from the other night. Right on cue, in the shadow of the Castle Hill Club, this was the start of the Elite Women's Circuit Race Championships, and Hannah, it was a superb race. I mean, it was a nocturne essentially, wasn't it? And this was the moment on lap number 1 when Jo Tindley decided she was going to take things into her own hands and just ride away from everybody.
She did. She just took that opportunity, didn't she? She sensed that perhaps a little lull. Let's try and string things out. Let's try and break things up and try and reduce the peloton. 59 riders started the criterium, the Circuit National Championships, and she opened up a gap. It was continuing to go on an upward trajectory, around 30 seconds, 37 seconds. Then we started to see the moves from Josie Nelson here in the white and blue jersey, but always Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes. They were always attentive. They were vigilant to any moves trying to go off the front, just to deter any counter-attacks which would bring back Jo Tindley.
Yeah, they did a fantastic ride from a team perspective. A few of the riders from Story Racing also very active again. But as the light completely faded, ultimately, after losing that amount of time, she just pulled back again, didn't she? She just kept on riding that constant pace. And there we go, that was 1 lap to go. And what a joy that final lap must have been for her. She had nearly a minute in hand, and that was the moment that she crossed the line to take the title. And importantly as well, she lives and trains on these very roads. This was just the finish as well. That was Smith who just crashed across the line, unfortunately. Both of those riders, as a result of that unfortunate crash, we understand have got concussion and won't be starting today's national championships, which is a big, big shame because both of those riders clearly in some fantastic form.
Real heartbreak for both those riders, Zabi Smith and Corin Side. Corin Side, the teammate of Jo Tindley, and really unfortunate, but so important, and that they make sure they look after themselves. And concussion is a real important topic. You shouldn't, you need to let the head recover, rest, and take it seriously. So we wish both of those riders all the best with their recovery, and hopefully it won't be too long until we see them back. But first and foremost, their health.
Yeah, but I suppose it recompense they've got a medal each, haven't they? But no, it would have been great to see them on the start line today. But it's not to be. There is the flag I was talking about a few moments ago. We've got another 5 minutes or so before the start. Let's have a look back at the men's Elite Circuit Race Championships as well. well, which took place in complete darkness. Thankfully, the organisers had the wherewithal to put some spotlights on the circuit as well. But again, another action-packed race, which split up very, very early on what is a exceptionally technical circuit, only 900 metres round.
It was, and a race where you took on some of the cobbles over the top of Castle Square, and it was fast from the off. Mould making it fast from the beginning. Then we started to see this select group starting to form with Ethan Hayter, Lewis Askey, Charles Page of Ribble Weltite, the rider in the blue jersey, was the first rider to start to open up and make a gap.
He certainly was. That was the first proper attack of the day, and as you say, that eventually drew an elite group clear. This is the early stages when that break formed. Really superb ride. But this was also a key point in the race where a couple of riders slid out on that corner, causing a little split in the bunch. But at the kind of speeds that they were moving, that split was a significant one. And this is Tanfield, Harry Tanfield, rolling through there. And on his wheel, Lewis Askey, just coming across the gap very, very late indeed, just into vision there, and just coming into focus was the time trial champion, and that's Ethan Hayter. So it's a very, very good group indeed. And on the front there as well, the brother of Harry was Charlie Tanfield too, who launched one on the final lap.
So impressive from Ethan Hayter to bridge that gap when the pace, I mean, his form is superb, isn't it, right now? And this was into that final few hundred metres when it was shoulder to shoulder between Harry Tanfield and Ethan Hayter, getting through that gap. Incredible.
Well, it was such a technical last few metres that I think the last 50 metres he just freewheeled. It was all about getting into the right position and using that track craft as well, but a real cool, calm and collected performance by Ethan Hayter, who a little bit later on today is in, well, he's certainly in the shape to do it, but can he pull off a hat-trick? And I don't think, well, I'm pretty sure nobody has ever done that before at the elite men's level.
And what a win it would be if he could pull off that hat-trick. He's got two teammates alongside him for the Ineos Grenadiers in Owen Doull and Ben Swift, the defending champion. But when you look at Ethan Hayter, the form that he's in and how he's racing, it's just phenomenal. What a year he's had. And for Ethan Hayter, rode the Lincoln Grand Prix back in 2019. He was on the academy then, British Academy, racing for his local club, VC Londres. I think he finished within the top 10 that year, went back in Lincoln Grand Prix, so knows this course well.
Yeah, as do a lot of the British riders, of course. Most British riders of any elite level at some point would have raced the Lincoln Grand Prix. It is a real classic race, what I'd like to call a blue ribboned event on the domestic calendar, and it is great to see it back after. We know that COVID-19 has really disrupted all sports across the board, but the British domestic scene, both men's and women's, was just brought to complete and utter standstill, and there was no racing at all. But it is great to see the Lincoln Grand Prix back and incorporating the British Championships, and we've had some fantastic racing over the last few days, and I can tell you what, this course always delivers in terms of excitement. We know, of course, it's the riders that make the racing, but this course just gives us everything, doesn't it? There's a bit of everything on this circuit, like a mini classic. There's flat, open, exposed bits with crosswinds, there's technical descents, and there's steep climbs as well. It's got it all.
You've got to be an all-rounder, haven't you?
You certainly have.
Of course, fitness plays a huge part of today's race, but also your tactic, how you ride, if you're an individual rider, if you're a team rider, how many riders do you have within the team to help and assist you? When you look at some of the riders on the start list who are racing for the UCI teams, they're sole representatives. Hannah and Alice Barnes, both from the same team, of course, of Canyon SRAM Racing. But as we said before, you know, it's your knowledge of the course, knowing where to be.
Totally. It is one of those races that every time you ride it, you learn something new. And if you haven't ridden it before, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage. But again, there's multiple laps, so you soon get an opportunity to know what's happening. But it is one of those races that you have to race from the front as well. Lincoln Grand Prix, you have to race it from front. Let's have a look back at some of the previous winners of the British Championships. Emma Pooley back in 2010. Then we had Lizzie Armitstead 2011, Sharon Laws in 2012, Armitstead again in 2013, Laura Trott 14, Armitstead again, unsurprisingly, 2015, that was when it was here. She went on to win the Worlds then. Hannah Barnes in 2016, Lizzie Deignan in 2017, Jess Roberts in 2018, and Alice Barnes, who's here to defend her title. She won in 2019. And back in 2015, she was second, in fact, to Lizzie Armitstead on this very circuit. So, as you said, this is a course that the defending champion knows very, very well, and it does suit her attributes.
She's got this effort within her where she can sustain very high power for roughly a minute, and that's what Michael Gate is. It's around 50 seconds to 1 minute of effort. For Alice Barnes, she's tactically astute as well, so she just knows exactly where to be within the peloton when she needs to move up, but also to have that effort. And from her mountain bike background, she just has that acceleration. Been racing, stopped the mountain bike racing now, and has been focusing on the road over the last 5 or 6 years.
And of course she is, we saw earlier on Joe Tindley coached by Dean Downing, so one of his coach riders won. Dean doesn't live too far away from Lincoln, just up a little bit further north, but Alice is coached by Dean as well, and Dean himself he's a previous circuit race champion, but more importantly won the Lincoln Grand Prix as well, so he knows how to win this race as well. So a lot of experience there packed into one rider.
And also with his brother Russell Downing, he's playing
another winner,
another winner who's won the Lincoln Grand Prix on numerous occasions, also being the British Road Race champion, but also helping Dean with his coached riders. So for Tinley and for Alice Barnes, they're able to benefit from their knowledge, not only come race day or on the circuit, but also year round within the training, trying to make that peak.
Definitely, it should be a spectacular race. Great to see already some hardy fans out, thankfully well protected against the elements. It is predicted to rain all day for both the men's and the women's races. The men's race kicks off at 1 p.m. this afternoon, around about an hour after this finishes, although looking at the time, there should be still around half an hour between both of our races, all of which you can see here. So we do believe it's not uncommon in the Lincoln Grand Prix, just from a logistical perspective, that the start's delayed. If there's any cars parked on the circuit, quite often the police have got a very close relationship with the local councils, obviously, and the race organisers, and rider safety, Hannah, is paramount. I'm not saying that's happening now, but I know in the past we've had delays, so we make sure any obstacles are removed from the circuit to ensure safe passage of the riders, especially on the run into the city centre.
So important, and as you say, the police and the local authorities, the organisation do such a fantastic job for putting the rider safety at the forefront. It's so important. Dan Elmore there, the organiser of the Lincoln Grand Prix and the National Championships, took over that organisation from Ian Emerson a few years back, I think around 2015, and just important to make sure that everyone is kept safe on that run-in, because you want to make sure that everyone has a nice, safe rollout.
Definitely. Well, it looks as if that's the back of the convoy making its way around for us. Well, that's a relief. So there are the team cars. It's quite an exciting race to be involved in the team cars in this race, because there's some real quick technical sections, especially as we go through Burton Village. Very steep. It's about 10% the descent of Burton Village. You pick up speed very, very quickly indeed. You have to shave it off right and left. This is the top of the Michael Gate. This is the run into the finish. So the riders come off the climb, swing a right onto tarmac, and then just for the last 25 metres or so, they're back onto the cobbles again. So that is at the finishing straight. So not much opportunity to move up from the top of the climb, but we've seen some really close finishes in the Lincoln Grand Prix in the past. Riders battling it out side by side, coming into that final corner, but the line that everybody wants, which is the quickest racing line, is on the inside. If you go on the inside, it forces everybody else wide. They have to take the longer line, although they will be moving dramatically slower than we saw in the Circuit Race Championships, of course.
They certainly will. That accumulation of effort, fatigue, the sheer distance of the race, 101 kilometres, 63 miles of racing, 8 laps of an 8-mile circuit.
They'll be coming around thick and fast. So there's Dean Downing. That's the gentleman we were talking about. He's the coach of Alice Barnes and the coach of Joe Tindley, who took that title. So he's behind the scenes. Here is the convoy. Again, this is the run into the climb itself, and there is the peloton for the first time, which is great to see. Lots of capes, gilets, the order of the day. It's not overly warm out there today, and it'll be made cooler by the rain. 12 degrees is forecast. It might maybe nudge up to 13 degrees, but a decidedly chilly day. I guess, you know, we're in October, aren't we? We're heading towards November. That's not very far away, so quite an... Although, and I'm saying that, back when I was racing in the 90s, the World Championships and the British Championships used to be in October, back end of October. So the calendar's shifted somewhat, so this isn't actually uncommon, although things did change a few years ago. So back in the day, the National Championships was very late in the season.
And also not unusual, though, at this time of the year to have better weather than sometimes we do in June or July. Indeed. When it is very wet indeed. So I think, all things considered, considering where we are in the calendar, middle of October, the National Championships, the weather that has been presented to us has been very kind so far.
It certainly has. It certainly has. But today, more of a kind of early season classics feel about it. But as we know, many of these riders will be more than, well, I wouldn't say more than happy, but used to riding in these conditions. They're the Barnes sisters, Hannah on the left-hand side, Alice just on the right. Alice, the defending champion. And although she is the defending champion in the British Championship, she doesn't wear the jersey. It's the only race that she will not wear the British Championship jersey. And the only other races, of course, that you don't wear your championship jerseys are the World Championships, Olympic Games, etc. So it was would have been the women's tour that was the last time she wore that national champs jersey in anger.
Yes, it was. And also in the time trial, being the time trial national champion, the road race national champion, she certainly gave it a fantastic outing, did Alice Barnes. She'll want to try and get it back on her shoulders once again, or at least within the Barnes family.
Yeah, I wonder deep down. I know they've got a very good relationship. They've been racing on the same team for several years now, but both of them, Hannah, previous champion in 2016. But you wonder what kind of sibling rivalry is going to play out today. Very, very interesting indeed. But yeah, they are each other's teammates, so they are going to have to work together, aren't they?
They are. They certainly are, and they do have a good relationship between each other. But also, when you consider that Hannah Barnes has signed a new contract with Uno X for next year, so won't be staying with Canyon SRAM. So I'm sure she will, and her new team, Uno X, will want her to try and take the British National Champions jersey to that Scandinavian team.
It's great news that I know the Uno X team, pro-continental team or second division team, men's squad, and they've got big aspirations for the women's team, and also moving up. I know it's not next year to World Tour, there'll be World Tour for women, but 2023-24 they want to move up. So a big project, and as we know, racing in Scandinavia, Norway, Denmark, Finland, of course, and Sweden is massive, and they've got a disproportionately high amount of talent considering their relatively low populations as well.
Incredible amount of talent coming through those countries, and for Uno X, great to see them as we get already the countdown map.
Indeed, well, that was Anna Henderson there, TT champion. There is the countdown, and we are finally, slightly late, we're underway. The Lincoln Grand Prix, incorporating the British Elite Women's Road Race Championships, and the Under-23s is now underway. A big field here. We've got 120, I think it's actually a little bit less. We had 120 on the start. You've had a few non-starters, but around 110 riders rolling out here for the start today. So there will be just a very brief neutral rollout, and as soon as they go through the city gates, I do believe the race will be deneutralized, but this is the kind of going through the feed zone now on the left-hand side, barriered off, so riders can't actually pick the left-hand side. Now, over the years, the barriered element of the Michaelgate climb has actually changed, because riders used to ride on the pavement, now they can't, which I think is a good thing. But as you mentioned earlier on, we'll be seeing the different, this is the archway that I was talking about, once we get back onto the main road. 81 starters, thank you very much, so a little bit less than I anticipated there, but a very good field nonetheless, and we are set for a very exciting race once we are through this neutral zone, and everybody's emerged out of the town in one piece. This neutral zone allows for any mechanical, so if a rider in this particular zone section of the race were to have a puncture or a mechanical, the race would actually continue until they were back on, and then the flag would be dropped. So Tate Butasi on the front there for Drops Le Col, one of my favourite kits in the peloton. And they've got a very, very strong team here. They've ridden a very, very aggressive and strong women's tour the other week, and they'll be definitely trying to get their hands on that coveted jersey. It can mean so much, it really does. And of course they don't just get to ride it for a year, you get to have that those national stripes tipping on your jersey for the rest of your career.
Danny Christmas just on the right hand side, just gone out of shot there for Drops Le Col. This is her final race before she retires from the sport. So her final international race at the AJ Bell Women's Tour just last week, and today we'll be racing her final ever race. So this is a special one for Danny Christmas.
Quite emotional, won't it, as well? So we're just heading through Newport now. It's quite a built-up urban area here, and there's a left-hand turn in a minute. This is into Yarborough Crescent. You just hear the disc brakes as they slow down a little bit. Actually, I think it's a couple. I think they actually do, from memory, a couple of Ks. I think we actually get on to Burton Road, and that's when they drop the flag. So a couple of Ks of a neutral rollout just to warm the engines up a little bit there. As we look at one of the riders from St Piran, that's Gemma Sargent. We've got 4 riders from St Piran. They also have a men's team as well, but a slightly different kit. But this is when it gets a little bit nervous. I'm just wondering how the race early is going to pan out, because I would want to be in a good position for the first descent of Burton Village. For me, once the flag goes, it's not so much, obviously they've got the climb coming up, but Burton Village, very technical. I'd want to be near the front for that first descent, just to assess it. Wouldn't want to have too many riders around me. And
because you have every rider is wanting to try and move up at that point. So if you can imagine 81 riders all vying for the top 10, top 15 positions in the peloton, that fight really starts to unfold. And as you say, the neutral section, it does provide that moment, doesn't it, for riders to move up, to try and get into position, just to anticipate what might happen once the flag has dropped over the neutral section.
You can see a few key riders. Alice Barnes actually just saw at or near the front. Slate Fultesi just in the centre. Number 90 there on the left-hand side for Story Racing. That is Lucy Gadd. Lucy Gadd was very active the other day in the Circuit Race Championship. She looked very strong. Has to be a bit of an outsider, perhaps, for a good top 5 ride today, the way she was riding the other night.
Incredibly strong. We'll be vying for the under-23 title as well. So for Lucy Gadd, a real standout ride, and I think over the last few seasons has really shown such great promise. And with Dame Sarah Story and Barney Story, the managers of the team, the owners of the team, and having that expertise, that knowledge as a rider, it's invaluable, isn't it?
Well, she's a complete and utter inspiration, isn't she, Dame Sarah Story? She really is. It really inspires these young riders, and they've had the team for several years now, still going strong, and a very, very important part of the domestic women's scene, that's for sure. I get the sense this is getting just a little bit nervous now. The speed is building up a little bit. Now in this long straight road, it's about 2k, a kilometre and a half Burton Road before that left turn, and again it is a bit of a funnel, and the road drops where we go over the A46, and that's probably in about 400 metres time. But I've ridden this course so many times, it's actually I'm getting a bit emotional. It's bringing back so many memories. I think the last time I rode it was probably about 2005, 2006. But I really love this race.
A little bit nostalgic, as you say. It's just such a fantastic race, great course, great atmosphere, great organisation. It's just got something for every type of rider on this course, and the way it unfolds is it's so special.
There you go. This, you can just see the bridge they're going over. That is the bridge over the A46. And this takes us into Middle Street. And I think this is where they've actually officially started. So the flag has been drawn in, and as you can see, the race has properly started. The pace is already high, and this is just to get into position for this first descent. And the riders happy to invest in a little bit of extra pace on the run into this tight left-hander, which takes us on to this descent, which is quite bumpy as well. From memory, it's not a particularly good road surface. Well, there's lots of potholes, there's drains, it's a really inconsistent road surface.
As well as white lines as well, which
Exactly.
in this weather really need to be mindful of. And Sian Bottilie, the rider who's on the front at the moment, she's sensing that she wants to make sure that she's in a good position going into that descent. It's really important once you take that left-hand turn. Joss Loudon here coming round for drops Le Col. Just riders know that they need to be up towards the front, hence why we're seeing such a fast, active start.
Definitely get that washing machine effect, don't you? As we're heading ever closer to this first left-hander. So riders moving up on the outside, just looking towards the back of the field there. So that left turn, as you can see, marked by that left-hand sign. We'll be dropping off this. This is the highest point of the race, basically. And here's the descent that we were talking about. This is the descent of Burton Village. There's a gentle little left-hander, then it's a hard right, immediately left, and then left again. Yeah, always a very, very sketchy descent, especially in this weather. And riders are going to leave bigger gaps on it because braking distances are a lot longer.
And you can see here as well that now we're into autumn. The leaves are dropping as well, so the wet leaves combined with these conditions, as you say, you can see how some of the riders are taking this descent very gingerly, leaving gaps there. The gap is starting to open up.
Yep, the gaps are starting to open here on this descent, and that's going to make it very, very difficult later on, because there'll be like the accordion effect. This is the first right-hander, then we've got this left-hander immediately afterwards. So some of the riders just towards the back here, as you said, Hannah, riding very, very cautiously indeed.
It's important, isn't it, though, that you do take this this descent with precaution. If you find yourself suffering a crash or caught behind a crash, of course you don't want to be involved. We never like to see something like that, but that descent, it does have that fast tendency. Especially when you have these S-bends towards the bottom of the descent, where you can carry a lot of speed, and you can just see the distance from the back of the peloton, the front of the peloton, already out of sight.
Yeah, there's a couple of riders just on the back here really starting to struggle. That was Hannah Lancaster from the Loughborough Lightning at TRG, and then you've got this another right-hander. This is, I've actually come off on this particular stretch trying to chase to get back on, end up in the hedge many years ago, but that was another story. But no, this field is really stretched out. You can just see a little bit further up. It's probably around 20-30 seconds long, even longer than that at the moment. But that's the damage that this descent can do in these conditions, and that pattern's going to continue and continue through the race.
Only a few kilometres into the race, maybe not even 2 kilometres, and already the damage is being done. So for some riders already, it's going to be a long chase. This is an opportunity to get back on this section of road, on the country road, especially before we take that left turn onto the A57, a wide main road. But it's Drops Le Col on the front, who they know they need to keep this pace high.
Yep, keep this pace nice and high. This is dead straight now. There's a couple of little turns they've just been through, and then for around a kilometre or so, it's dead straight all the way. It narrows ever so slightly, but as you quite rightly said, this will offer up. They're riding a good tempo on the front here, but certainly not electrifying, so it will allow an opportunity for riders to get back in contact. But that's why this race is so difficult, because there's a lot of chasing, and once you've chased and got back on, that's when we hit the main road and we'll have that crosswind. So the shape of the peloton will be quite interesting when we move on to this left-hander. These are the riders behind still battling to get back on.
Just taking a look at the back of the group, looks like we're already into 3 distinctive groups on the road at the moment. A few gaps between the 3. They're starting to close things up, but they're expending so much energy, aren't they, Matt, here, having to make this effort to chase back on.
Yeah, that's Millie Skinner, number 71 on the back there for the Pro Noctis team. The local team, of course, have enjoyed massive success so far with that win, that magnificent solo victory of Joe Tinley just the other day. But they should get back on here. There's no real attacking, they're just kind of keeping themselves out of trouble. So these riders should get back on, but the big thing is at what cost. You can just see up ahead, just where the flashing light is, that's where we join the A57 and swing left, and the road gets very wide again, but that's when they'll hit the wind in their face, and then when the road swings left, that's when they'll pick up a cross tailwind, which could prove that's the worst kind of wind, isn't it? Cross tailwinds are when we see echelons. That's when the race potentially could split.
It is, and a real danger point on the course. Although some of the sections where we have the cross tailwind, they're not that long. It's the accumulation of the laps. If it happens every lap and you're always on that wrong side of the split, the energy expended to chase back on soon starts to wear off. You get fatigued. That's when the danger and the damage really comes. And even if you do get yourself back on, you're already into Michaelgate, aren't you? So you're already sort of well into the top end of threshold, into the red zone.
You certainly are. So back onto for the first time, should I say, onto the A57. Riders moving up around the outside, and that is where the wind is. So the riders moving around, making sure they're getting in a good position. So we've got, this is now Saxelby Road. They've been riding into a little bit of a cross headwind here. There's one of our riders just off the back there, just trying to regain contact with the peloton. That's Laura Cheeseman again. Looking like she will get back in contact, but already several riders starting to struggle. Number 20, that was Abigail Cooper from the Brother UK cycle team on form, one of our under-23s. So it looks like an absolutely miserable day out there, doesn't it? It really, really does.
That's also part of the battle, isn't it, between riders?
Definitely.
If you come into this race mentally strong, you're not buoyed by the conditions. In fact, some riders will really relish and love these type of conditions because of how attritional it makes it, how hard it makes it. Already some riders will come to the start line defeated because they don't enjoy racing in the wet conditions.
Exactly. Especially a technical race in wet conditions. Just racing in wet conditions, as you say, a few riders will rule out a lot of riders. They won't have the same sort of morale or the same kind of enthusiasm, whereas others will absolutely revel in these sorts of conditions. But we're seeing a couple of little moves on the front here. Few nice injections of pace on this tailwind section. As you can see, the pace completely changed now. They're really moving pretty quickly as they pick up this tailwind. They'll then hit a headwind again, just briefly before swinging left onto Long Lees Road and heading back in towards the town. So a nice injection of pace, utilising that tailwind. And it's amazing, isn't it, how the psychology changes, Hannah, when you get a bit of a tailwind. Suddenly, everybody feels like 10 times stronger, don't they? So happy to go onto the front. Rather in the headwind, it's like, oh, I don't really fancy that, but give me a tailwind, I'll go to the front.
I'll certainly go to the front and push the wind from everyone else in the tailwind. And not only for everyone else, but also yourself. You feel like you're onto such a good day. It makes you feel great. The legs are there. Frankie Hall on the front there in the purple jersey with the fluorescent bike, just taking things up for the Loughborough team.
This is another tight left-hander. Still a pretty decent wide bit of road, taking us off the A57, off Saxelby Road onto Long Keys Road now. As you can see, long and straight. It then bears to the right, and we actually go underneath the A46. Went over it earlier on. We actually go underneath it in a bit, and then the road starts to gently drag. So this road ever so slightly starting to climb, as you see, a first big attack of the day.
Rachel Langdon of the Instafund racing team spent a long time, the majority of the season, racing out in the USA, racing in those criteriums out in the US, doing a lot of the US stage races. So a rider who has had a lot of international racing in the legs, has come into this with good form. She's had several tremendous results out in the USA on that criterium scene, and she's making a huge stamp of authority here. Perhaps wants to try and get rid of a few riders on this slight incline. This is one of these sections that we were speaking about earlier on, where it's really draggy. It's very deceptive, actually,
really
when
deceptive.
you look at the camera angle.
She's been brought back. Good move by Rachel Lang. You can just see out of the saddle here. This is where the road just kicks up. It's only 3 or 4%, this little drag, but after several laps, it really starts to tell. You get a bit more of a sense of the gradient just here as the rain continues to fall, and a couple of riders start to struggle there. That was Catriona Ross of Bridgeport Cycling Club just drifting back, but the road, it rises now for the next kilometre and a half, doesn't it, before dropping down. And this again is a really draggy, sticky bit of road.
It's just really difficult. Again, the positioning is key. Whilst you've got some riders who are wanting to try and expend energy and make that effort to move up, we've already got some riders who just with that injection of pace set by Rachel Langdon and the injection of pace within the peloton to try and close that gap. A few riders finding themselves in difficulty again. Laura Cheeseman of the Evans Cycles race team, again, just finding herself. She's already been chasing back on, got back on, just needs to find herself in the centre of the peloton just to try and get a little bit more, just to shelter herself from the wind.
It was interesting that Langdon wasn't given any headway at all. There was a real determined chase pretty much immediately, because it was a good move. She was moving pretty quickly, looked strong, and was clearly trying to just get herself in a little move. But it is very rare, from my experience in riding the men's edition on multiple occasions, that anything goes on the flat first time through. Generally, it's a split over the Michaelgate. So you see a few riders trying to go away on the flat, but generally the bunch comes together first time up, and then we start to see the splits. This all-important first time up the Michaelgate is going to be fascinating.
It certainly is, but we've got so many fresh legs, haven't we? Only a few kilometres into the race, so they're able to make that immediate reaction to Rachel Langdon. They know that she's a dangerous rider. They don't want to give her any space, but for Langdon, perhaps for herself, just testing the legs, wanting to try and open things up before we take the first descent of Michaelgate, because it really is a lung buster, isn't it? And you want to make sure that you're fully prepared for it, maybe just to test and to see if there is any reaction from behind.
Definitely. We just saw Leah Dixon on the front. She sadly hasn't got a teammate with her because Abby Smith crashed on the way to get that silver medal the other day. But Dixon on her own, just on the right-hand side with that fluorescent bike, but still altogether spread across the road. Drops Le Col represented as well. And this is where we've got this nasty little climb here. Looks like Loudon attacking on the right-hand side here. Good move by Loudon. Already several riders starting to struggle at the back there. That is Laura Cheeseman again struggling. This is steeper than it looks. This is about kind of 8 or 9% before we drop back down. And again, another key part of the course.
Real key part, and then you have that fast descent, and we see Loudon, who was making that move. She was having a little chat momentarily, moments before that, with Leah Dixon. So despite being on different teams, they're having a chat, maybe what's going to unfold, perhaps have almost a joint idea to try and go hard, try and string things out at the moment. And it is Drops Le Col who are wanting to try and push the pace on to try and split things here. Anna Christian on the front on the left-hand side at the moment.
You can just see Anna Henderson there in the black jersey, making sure she is well positioned. The newly minted time trial champion on Thursday. She's certainly looking good. And this is where a crucial kind of left and right hander is really what we want to see, because that is absolutely, it's such a difficult technical part of this circuit before the run into the climb. That little traffic island on the left-hand side. Some riders approaching this pretty cautiously, but it is quite slippy, and then the road just picks up again, narrows just here, and then we get the entrance to the Michaelgate, and that's number 11 starting to struggle a little bit. That's Phoebe Martin of the AWOL O'Shea team.
Along with the road furniture, you also have the grates, the hull covers, also the white lines again with the leaves. So another real tricky descent.
Yeah, well, looking at the back markers here, Cheeseman trying to get back. This is the action that we need to see at the front of the race. Just see Henderson on the left-hand side doing exactly what you said. There's slightly a longer distance going around on the right-hand side, but she's picking her line and riding on the smooth on the right-hand side. But Loudon opting, Loudon's just dropping into the wheel of Henderson, isn't she?
Yeah, Loudon just following that wheel. Anna Christian on the right-hand side for Drops Le Col, wanting to push things on, so she's not opting to try and take that smoother line in the gutter. She just wants to keep focused in the on the cobbled section, on the dead centre of the road. And this is where we're starting to see the difficulty of this climb now. And it really is a hard one, this first descent of Michaelgate. It's
really difficult, and you can see the grass growing here. These are the big attacks, well, not attacks, just the forcing of the pace over the top. Now this is where the road, this is the last part of the cobbled section. We swing a hard right here, so look at the gaps already starting to open at first time up. This swing right, and then this is the part of the circuit that we recognise from the other day. When lap number 1 is done and dusted. Look at the damage that's been caused first time up. Several riders just trying to get across the gap here.
Around 11 riders in that front split, which is being caused by Anna Christian on the front at the moment. just saw going through the finish line Sophie Wright of the Ali BTC Ljubljana team, trying to bridge that move. Pfeiffer Georgi was included. There is Anna Henderson of Jumbo-Visma in the black and yellow jersey.
Well, this is where the race generally can explode. It's because there's no descent, no opportunity to recover. The pace is being continued over the top, and the gap is opening up very, very quickly. This is a great bit of riding by Anna Christian of Drops Le Col, forcing this group clear. One or two riders have managed just to get on the back, and still the riders climbing the Michael Gate or just finishing the top of the Michael Gate. Struggling in the wake of the pace that's been set. That was a Flora Knight from the Loughborough Lightning team, just at the back here, just showing the differential here, the ability on the climb and the distance that you can actually put into somebody as Christian continues to, Christmas, shall I say, continues to ride hard.
Yeah, really impressive ride here from Christian at the moment. She's been on the front all the way from the bottom of that climb, setting that pace, and she is the rider who's done this damage. Just taking a look who is in this group. Anna Shackley is there for SD Works. The defending champion Alice Barnes is there. We can see her there in the black rain cape. Also, Josie Nelson is there, Pfeiffer Georgi, Joe Tinley, who won that Circuit National Championships on Friday evening there in the fluorescent rain cape.
April Tacey also in that group for Drops Le Col as well, so that is a really, really good group, as one rider sadly just getting herself to the top of the climb, Abigail Cooper there, but this is a very, very strong group. Look at that second group needs to try and get back in contact sooner rather than later, otherwise this could be the race-winning move, and they are not hanging around at all, and Drops Le Col, powered by Tempo, have a lot of riders in this front group.
Just trying to see who else is in here. As you say, Tacey is there, Loudon along with Christian. One notable rider who has missed this move so far, Hannah Barnes, a previous victor in this National Road Race Championships back in 2016 when she took that win. She's missing from this group.
Well, Hannah Christian is happy because of the amount of number that this team have got in this group. Hannah Christian isn't getting a lot of assistance at the moment, but she's willingly riding on the front, but they really need to try and push home their advantage, although it's very, very early on in the race. The first of 8 laps is done. We have a very, very good selection, and this is the sort of selection that you would imagine happening later on, but it just shows how difficult this climb is. The gap continuing to open, but it does look as if there's a proper chase behind, and it looks like it might be being led by Story Racing, because they haven't got anybody represented in this front group.
No riders represented in this front group for Story Racing. Lucy Gadd, one of the riders who's on form, Beth Morrow as well. Both riders are under 23, so they, if they want to try and be in contention in this race, in the fight for the national title, you really do need to chase this one down. You can see as well a flurry of red jerseys up towards the front. There is Isabel Darvel, I think, there for Pro Noctis team. As we said before, Story Racing up towards the front as well. And you can just see there the figure of Hannah Barnes in that black jersey, just about to take her rain cape off. So she has missed this move.
That's a bit of a surprise, to be perfectly honest with you. That gap is starting to open up, or I should say stable. It's saying it's 8 seconds, so it looks like that group are moving at around the same pace as this group. But number 96 rolling through, knows how good her form is, Josie Nelson. A couple of big wins in some Belgian comesses recently. Clearly a fan of the cobbles. Rode an attacking race the other night in the Circuit Race Championships too. But this is a very, very good group as the riders continue to get dropped from the bunch, or what's left of the bunch, because there's 3 or 4 groups already spread across the outskirts of Lincoln here. A
real surprise to see that Pro Noctis are riding here. They have Joe Tinley in that front group. So they already have a team represented, and you know, their standout rider within the team, their team leader. So quite a surprise to see. But of course, this is a national championship. Everyone wants to be in with a chance to win that title.
And that's Anna Shackley rolling through, as you said, with the Olympic Games. She's a very, very classy rider, happy to do her little bit of work. And meanwhile, this is the chase behind. Probably about maybe 30 riders in this group. Another group just starting to make contact. But this will be the pattern of the race, won't it? It will continue to fracture on that climb. So difficult. But they need, if they're going to get back in contact, they need to do it now. As one of the riders from Story attacks to try and bridge this gap rather than pull the rest across.
it was only a matter of time, wasn't it, before we saw a big attack from that group. And with the form of the two riders from Story Racing, they know the danger. They know that if they let this gap grow any more, then it's going to be incredibly difficult to bridge the gap, or indeed bring the group back all together. So they're taking this opportunity over this top section before they take the left-hander down the descent to try and get some cohesion within this chasing group.
Definitely, it doesn't look overly organised. There's a few riders just looking round. Of course, the Pro Noctis team, after riding a little bit, don't really need to do any riding because they've got their team leader in this group. This is right at the back of the race. We can see this is probably group number 3 on the road. And then we have the main bunch up ahead, and then our lead group of around 10 or 11 riders out in front. Also in that group, Danny Shrosby from Team London Brother UK. She's looking good as well, happy to do a little bit of work. And there's confirmation this is indeed group 3, because they'll be dropping down very, very shortly into Burton Village again, down that very technical descent, which we saw a lot of riders have some difficulty on.
A lot of riders taking that precaution, aren't they, because of how treacherous the conditions were on the descent and how slippery that descent was. Just seeing a few riders trying to, this is our chasing group, trying to chase down the leading group on the road. So you really do have the upper hand, don't you, from taking the race on or going down this descent in the first few positions.
Definitely, you pick your line, but we know the composition of this front group. There's some very, very talented riders indeed. And they'll be more than happy to tackle these sorts of conditions, as we get a great shot of the descent into Burton Village. And carrying a lot of pace and then having to shave it off for this nasty little right-hander. And just on the apex of this corner, from memory, is a big drain cover as well, so lots of hazards on this little corner. So we're getting a little bit of picture breakup, unfortunately. This is due to 4G, but keep getting these pictures to you as best we can. Meanwhile, there's another little counter-attack from the chasing group behind, and this looks like it could be a pretty decent move. Take a nice racing line around that corner, swinging left, then cutting through the apex. But you've probably got about an 8 or 10 second gap to cross, but she needs to do it sooner rather than later, because if this group in front gets more than 10 or 15 seconds, they're gone.
The longer you leave it, the more difficult it is for anyone from that chasing group. And you can see she's made light work of it, because she's already almost about to bridge that gap. So it shows it's doable, Matt. Incredible ride from this rider.
A very, very good ride indeed. And there's the group behind. They actually are closing a little bit. It looks as if she's going to get across here, one would imagine. Although quite often when a rider accelerates they close that initial bit of gap, but it's then keeping the effort going, put themselves into the red. Big turn on the front now by Tacey, just on the left-hand side, the youngster going for this under-23 award as well. So Tacey's got a very, very big engine, but it is her team. The team Drops Lacole, supported by Temper, who have numerical advantage. They've got 4 riders in this front group. They are on fire today.
Incredible to be able to put 4 riders within this group of around 11. You have Danny Christmas, Joss Loudon, April Tacey and Anna Christian, and it's in their best interest now to make sure that they keep this group going through and off, keep that cohesion there as well. So for Drops Lacole, supported by Temper, such a strong position to be in. And when you see the form of these riders, the majority, or all 4 of them, sorry, have just come off the back of the women's tour. So coming out with strong form, no fatigue is lingering there, and they have recovered well over the last week. Spent the week in Lincoln doing the time trial championships as well. So for Drops Lacole, best interest, keep riding through, keep the cohesion within this leading group.
They're working very, very well. They've got 2 lines going here, proper breakaway formation, everybody riding. I can't actually see if that individual rider has managed to get back on terms just at the back. Georgie Pfeiffer is the rider just on the back there, but she still hasn't managed to make it, and that group do look now, after initially closing the gap a little bit, to be losing ground. And once we move onto this road in the headwind, it's going to be very difficult for that solo rider to get on terms, as Alice Barnes, the defending champion, rolls through on the front fully caped up against these horrible elements. And then there's Joe Tindley on the front, red jersey underneath, and on the top that fluorescent cape as we look a little bit further down the road. The gaps still aren't big, but I'm expecting them now to start to open up on this main road. This is a key section before we hit the climb for the second time.
Once you lose that impetus in that chasing group, there's nothing you can do about it. If there's not enough riders who are willing to do the chase, to contribute to the pace, to try and close the gap, a rider isn't able to do it all by themselves. They also don't want to think about their own interests. I'm just seeing towards the back there, Danielle Khan, a former sprint world champion when she was a junior, winning that title back in Glasgow, and starting to struggle with the pace towards the back of that group now.
Yeah, Josie Nelson just takes her turn on the front there in that blue kit of her new squad. Very impressive young rider, and this is the struggle behind to stay in contact. The rider's just battling to get back in contact with this group, and this is our solo rider who's still trying to get across this gap. She's got in a nice aero position, big attack, but it looks as if the group behind is catching her rather than her actually managing to get to that front group. But it's now or never really, I think, for her, but she's certainly putting a big effort in.
She's certainly not giving up with that chase, is she? But now she has the leading group in her sights, but now you're starting to see that cohesion, the impetus from the second large group on the road, and it does look like any moment now she will be reeled back in. She's not giving up without a fight, though.
No, she certainly isn't. The group behind are moving pretty quickly. She's only got a handful of seconds, another little glance behind. This is where she'll pick up a little bit more of a cross tailwind after riding into the cross headwind there. So the pace should pick up a little bit. The same will happen, of course, for the group behind. So it's a brave move to try and get across, a good acceleration, some clearly pretty high-level cornering skills in the wet. So a rider that's obviously very confident indeed. But at this point in the race, it doesn't look as if she's going to be able to get across that gap. Back to the front, still relaying well. If we just pan across, we might have a bit of an indication of the gap. There's the new circuit race champion, Joe Tindley. Things hotting up pretty much. Even in these cold conditions, once you start riding hard, proper race pace, as we look at the gap, 17 seconds, you really do start to warm up quickly, don't you?
You do, and just from that racing effort and the nature of the course as well, constantly up and down, the effort that you are exerting, it soon warms up the body. On the front in this chasing group, another key rider who's missed this move, Leah Dixon of Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah, that's a big surprise. She was at or near the head of affairs heading into the climb, but didn't manage to make the split. And as we look at another rider just getting back in contact towards the back, that's Becky Story of Cams Basso. And it's already reduced, isn't it? There's several riders who are completely lost touch. If anybody, there's no real cohesion, as you just mentioned before. It's riders trying to get across on their own. Drops Lecole happy to mark these as well.
Yes, they certainly are. It's in their best interest. Lizzie Bennett on the front for Drops Lecole, just keeping an eye on things towards the front, and you just saw the signal there from Leah Dixon in the navy blue jersey. She's signalling to say, let's go through and off, let's start to work together in this group to try and get back this leading group. So she wants to try and form a chase. She doesn't want to attempt to bridge the gap, which she has the strength to do so. If she wants to make one big effort to try and bridge across, we saw it was almost doable from one rider moments ago.
Some good riding here by Danny Christmas. I mean, she's clearly in good form. Really happy to try and make sure that this breakaway starts to move clear. But still, we're getting attacks from the group behind. And heading into, well into lap number 2 of our 8 laps here at the Women's Elite National Road Race Championships. 101 kilometres in total. That's 63 miles. 143 metres of elevation per lap. And this is where the road starts to roll again. We've had the quick part of the section, the course done and dusted, And this nasty little drag, which kind of really starts to seep into the legs. First few laps, it's not too bad. Then afterwards, it appears to almost get steeper and steeper, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and it goes up in ramps, doesn't it? You have this section, then it starts to plateau. Then as you go through that feed zone, again starts to rise, and then the really steeper section up towards the traffic lights. And it's the accumulation of effort on this course that really takes its toll on you. And as we see here, this is Beth McKeever, the rider from Torvelo CC, Torvelo Racing, a rider that we know very well, Matt, from esports, from e-racing.
Indeed, she's a very, very well-respected esports rider. She's won some big, big races last season in the ZRL. But riding hard on the front, they're trying to bring back this group because they can almost reach out and touch them on this bit of road. The speed will drop ever so slightly as the road continues to rise, and they will be riding into a cross headwind on this particular section. But there's still some fight in this bunch. They know, but they'll be acutely aware of the quality in that group out in front, and know that if they don't bring it back soon, then this group is going to go up the road. And Alice Barnes looks very, very comfortable just rolling through, as does Joe Tindley, now taking her turn at the front as well. This is a very, very good group indeed, just rolling through. Everybody looking pretty composed. A little bit of a glance around there from one of the riders from Drops-le-Col, and the gap is opening significantly here, Hannah.
It is, and as you say, the majority of the riders, all of these riders, looking very, very comfortable with the effort so far. The defending champion, Alice Barnes, almost floating along, turning a nice gear, keeping that cadence nice and high, really comfortable with the situation on the road. And back here in that chasing group with many of the riders with no teammates, or maybe only with one or two teammates, making it very difficult to keep that cohesion, keep that teamwork. Despite being rivals, it's all in their best interest that they want to try and bring back this leading group.
Oh, Drops-le-Col have played a blinder so far. That's that horrible little kicker at the front. They're mobbing the front here, the girls from Drops-le-Col. Just a reminder, we've got Anna Christian, Danny Christmas, Joss Loudon and April Tacey. They're the four riders that represent that team out in front. We've also got in the mix Daniel Shrosby from Team London Brother UK, Anna Shackley, the under-23 rider from Team SD Works. Also in the front group, Josie Nelson from Team Co-op High Tech Products, Pfeiffer Georgie of Team DSM, Anna Henderson just at the back of that group in that white and the black kit, should I say, running for Jumbo Visma. And also there, Joe Tindley from Pro Noctis Red Chili, a rider we know very, very well indeed. There she is on the left-hand side in the red. So this is a classy, classy move. And a lot of the stress has been taken out. If you're in the front group of kind of even 12 riders, even a reasonably big group, the stress has been taken out of the race because you're not battling for position in these conditions on this very, very fast run into the line. So definitely the place to be. This race needs to be raced from the front. It
does. That stress, the nerves taken away from you, and that jostling and fight for position. And it's constant, isn't it, on a course like this? When you're in a larger group or in the peloton, that fight for position into the key points of the course, it certainly does take its toll on you when you go lap by lap. A lot of energy expended as well, because you're constantly trying to fight to move up, to hold your position. If you're out of position, you're using a lot of energy to get yourself back up towards the front. And this is one of those key points where you already want to be within the top 5 placings.
Well, we're well onto the microgate climb. This is group number 2 on the road. Just the back of the group. We want to see the front of the race. That would be great to see how our leaders are tackling this iconic climb. And there we go. This is the group spread across the road. Anna Barnes in the centre of your screen. Remember, she is Alice Barnes, should I say. I'll get it right. Unfortunately, her sister has not managed to make the split, which is a big, big surprise. Although saying that, the gap now is really foreshortened on this climb. It's still around 10 or 15 seconds, but Hannah Barnes was right on the front. She might try and get across on her own.
She might do, and this is the opportunity for her to have that sheer injection of pace. We know Barnes has that effort in her, and if you can just make that huge effort, only around a minute, as we said before, you can do damage. You can try and bridge the gap, and although you might not bridge the gap to the chasing group immediately, it does mean that over the top, the deficit is shortened.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Alice looking pretty relaxed there as she just rolls through here, looking supremely confident as she leads this group round. Nobody's been dropped from that group, so pretty even. They all pick their own kind of line, spread all across the road. This is group number 2 on the road, the remnants of the peloton. A couple of riders just starting to struggle towards the back, but we need to see the front really to see if we can, if anybody's managed to move clear and possibly bridging across the gap now.
Yeah, Jenny Hull just on the back there for Tackers. Had a superb ride in the Circuit National Championships on Friday night. She's come off the back of a little break after the Paralympic Games, where she was the tandem pilot on the track and the road, and for her just starting to feel that pace on the climb. But although the gap to that chasing group looked like it was shortened over the top, you can see
it stretches out, doesn't it?
It does.
It's really strange. Sorry to cut across you, Hannah. It is. It looked as if they were going to make contact, and then over the top with the pace that they're carrying, they are out of sight. And I cannot see anybody in sight. Just continually looking at the top of the screen to see if I can see anybody emerge from that gate, but nobody has managed to cross the gap, although there is one solitary rider trying to come across the gap, it looks like.
Yeah, one rider, a darkened jersey. But at this point in the race, you have to try something. You have to try and close the gap, whether you bridge it. You can already sense that larger group, the peloton, that chasing group, despite the work that they're doing, because it's intermittent, the chase, it means that this leading group only enhances their lead. And if you want to try and get across, if you want to be in contention, you have to make one big effort to try and bridge across at this moment in the race.
Just a couple of riders distance off the back there as Alice Barnes negotiates the first left-hander. That's into Yarborough Crescent. It's only a short leg, this one, just a couple of 100 metres in Yarborough Crescent, and then they hit the next roundabout and turn right, head up Burton Road. But this group looking very, very good. Everybody working. A couple just struggled towards the back on the climb, but I can't see anybody sitting on. They look to be running in complete unison right now.
But I wonder if that's also done on purpose, if that's a tactical ploy from some of these riders, just to make sure that they can take their own line on the climb, to navigate the cobbles exactly where they want to, and just to not have that fight. They know that they're still in contention, they know they still have the legs, and over the top, once we get onto that smoother section, they can soon get back on.
Well, this is another rider we know very well, Eilidh Gardner, trying to get across the gap there. Well, we couldn't see exactly where she was. Don't know if she was actually in between or not. I'm not too sure, because trying to pan around, well, there's nobody at all. They've opened up a big gap here on Yarborough Crescent. They're pretty much out of sight, and there is the confirmation they have extended their lead from around 17 seconds at the foot of the Michael Gate to now 25 seconds over the top. And the way things are going at the moment, there needs to be something pretty spectacular to bring these back, or at least a group of 3 or 4 riders that are going to work together in unison to try and bridge across. But this group is mightily strong.
Having the strength in numbers of Drops Le Col also pays to the advantage of the likes of Anna Henderson, who is here as a solo representative for her team of Jumbo-Visma, along with Sophie Wright as well, of the LABTC Ljubljana team, that fluorescent jersey. Also Anna Shackley, a rider who is up for the under-23 title as well as the elite title. And here is our chaser. This is Eilidh Gardner, the young rider who, as you said, Matt, we know very, very well from e-racing in the ZRL. She's the Everesting world record holder. She's a formidable climber, is Eilidh Gardner, and she knows that she has to take this opportunity to go across the top section of the course here to try and bridge across.
Yep, interesting. Well, the gap is 25 seconds to her, so solo chaser she could have done with that, having maybe 1 or 2 riders with you. But if you're feeling strong on the climb, well, there it's gone down to 20 seconds now, so 20 seconds to the second group on the road, which is hardly a group, it's just one rider. And that's Eilidh Gardner doing a very, very good job indeed at the moment. But there's only so long a rider on their own can sustain it. And quite often you don't have a choice. If nobody can come with you on the climb, you're on your own, aren't you? You don't have a choice in the matter. People can either follow you. You don't wait on the climb of the market. You've got to do what you can and just see if you can get across. And
Nyla Gardner has that effort. She has that ability to be on her own, although she would have liked maybe a couple of riders to come with her to share that workload. You've got around 11 riders doing the work, going through and off, sharing that workload, as opposed to one rider in that chase in the middle of the group, having to push the wind, push the effort solely. So although she would have liked a couple of riders with her, she is looking around to see if anyone is making a move to try and attempt to get across to her.
This is this horrible little windy section here. This is really going to hurt. It's pan flat though as they cross over the A46. If we pan around, we might get a view on what sort of gap it is from a visible perspective. Oh, they're disappearing out of sight here. This is going to be very, very hard. It looks as if our lead group are soon going to be descending back into Burton Village, and here they are again. The newly minted circuit race champion of Great Britain, Tindley on the front now. A local rider, knows this circuit well and certainly was climbing well as well, and has that expertise as we talked about at the top of the show, with her coach Dean Downing, a former winner of the men's Lincoln Grand Prix. And she must have, the confidence that win must have given her, not just the win itself, but the manner of the victory as well. She's going to be on just really super confident, and what she got to lose as well.
I think that's the main point, isn't it? That what she got to lose, you have to be in it to win it. You have to risk. You have to be in the right position. Jo's an incredibly experienced rider as well. She's been in the sport for over 20 years. Only had a few years out of the sport in her late teens, early 20s, and you know, she has that experience. She knows where to be in the peloton, at which point she needs to be sort of in that front half of the group if there's going to be a split. And having well, she's a local rider, as you said, Matt, and living around here, she knows exactly where she needs to be. She knows the effort required on Michaelgate if you want to be in with a chance. And she's had, you know, the last few seasons have been really promising for Jo, and she's in such a good environment as well. She's in a great team, and I think that plays a lot for a rider. If you're happy within the team, you're happy with your training, you have a great relationship with your coach, everything's going to plan, all those stresses are taken away from you.
Massively. It is. It's always good. So we've just got a little bit of an issue with the coverage on that particular part of the circuit, but we'll get back to it as soon as you can. There they are. They've just rounded that second very quick bend, just exiting Burton Village, heading back towards the A57. But this group looking very strong indeed, and we've got some superb riders. There's another champion. Two of our champions from this past week are in here. Anna Henderson there, the time trial champion. What a magnificent victory that was, and also the circuit race champion as well, as one of the riders from Story Racing now tries to accelerate across the gap. But that gap is growing, and this is an increasingly difficult task now to get across to that move.
Having seen the group gain time on this chasing group against Story Racing, they're sensing that danger, that they know they need to try and get across sooner rather than later, and it's not always on the climb where the bridge can be made. We've seen before that it was very nearly completed on the previous lap.
Numerous times on that climb you've seen riders closed within just a couple of seconds, and you have to make a bigger effort to try and shut the gap, but keeping that momentum going through that little chicane and through the feed area as well. Those cobbles are really harsh, and it imperceptibly rises as well, so it's absolutely horrible, isn't it? You just want it to end and you're kind of on the limit for so long, but then going even quicker if you've got nobody with you is nigh on impossible. I mean, it's very difficult, and this is a pattern that we've seen to the Lincoln Grand Prix in both the men's and the women races. Year on year, it has to be raced from the front, and that's what we're seeing. The cream has risen to the top of this race in its very early stages.
A very tricky race. On this section as well, we have the crosswind, so the wind playing a factor better for this leading group. You can see this effort from Story Racing. the group from behind, they're starting to find some cohesion. There is being work being done, so they're quite happy to bring back any rider who is in that gap between the two groups. But then they almost lose that impetus, don't they? Once the chasing sole riders have been caught. Eilidh Gardner, prime example of that. One rider here from Story Racing who we saw both.
Gad, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's
it does.
Gad, yeah.
Both riders in superb form, and Gad especially on after seeing her on Friday night.
Well, that's the thing. In the Lincoln Grand Prix, what we see is if some riders in any sort of race struggle to get the engine going early on, even after a good warm-up, and it's only later in the race that you come round, but quite often then, you know, the train's left the station, hasn't it? It's a race you have to kind of learn to know that you need to go deep. It's not a race you can necessarily bed yourself in, because once you bed it in, the gap's 2.5 minutes to the front group. So it's a real difficult race to get your head around psychologically as well.
And when we've seen races, especially I find in the last year after the pandemic and we returned to racing, we're seeing that breaks, it's not unusual for an early breakaway to go away and stay away all the way to the finish line. We're seeing that in both the men's and women's professional racing, that it's not, as I say, not unusual that the riders take it on early, they take that opportunity, no one really senses that danger, and in the end the gap just continues to grow. We're starting to see a little bit of chat towards the front there. Leah Dixon of Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank.
Shaking her head,
yeah,
wasn't
shaking
she?
her head, not very happy, just having a little discussion with Francesca Hall of the Loughborough team.
Well, there we go, 36 seconds it is now for our leading group of riders. For Georgie, another one of the riders vying for the under-23 title as well. It's given the amount of under-23s we've actually got in this league group, we could see, well, there's a possibility that the under-23 rider could also win the elite championships as well. But this is a little group behind that are trying to relay and minimise the damage that has been caused already very early in this race. There's not many left in this peloton at all. But this is what they need to do. Rather than attack individually, they best using their collective interests, aren't they, to try and whittle away at the lead in front, because every time we hit the climb, that group is going to move clear. There's no doubt about it. It's a really nice number of riders out in front, giving you can do a nice hard turn on the front to keep that pace high, but also there's plenty of opportunity to rest as well. It's really optimum for a course like this.
It's so important that you are recovering in the wheels as much as you possibly can, and also we're starting to see riders now just take on some fuel on board with gels, their brioches, their rice cakes, their bars, and making sure that they're keeping the energy reserves topped up. So important, isn't it, to make sure that you're also taking extra bottles at the feed zone as well.
No, definitely, especially in these sorts of conditions when it's cold. The gap's still only 40 seconds, but it's slowly but surely going out as we head on to Long Leys Road. But fair play to the bunch. There is some sort of cohesion in here, isn't there? There's a couple of drops Le Col riders in there who won't do too much work. They'll just sit on and disrupt the chase a little bit, which is completely okay. Bit of a glance behind.
It's understandable, isn't it?
Totally. They've got 4 riders in front. They are in a very, very, very good place.
Starting to see Leah Dixon, you've seen that frustration coming round. She's trying to entice everyone to work together, to go through and off, to share the workload, to try and bring this group back. And you see some riders not willing to participate in that chase, and the shake of the head, and the more the frustration sets in, the more energy you're losing as well. And for me, Leah Dixon, she's had a great year. She won the Welsh Road Race Championships a couple of weeks ago. She had a strong ride in the women's tour. So yeah, I think she has that strength there. I think she also has to have that confidence in herself of knowing her abilities, that if she wants to, she is able to try and bridge this gap.
They need to do it. I keep saying it, I sound like a broken record, that it's now or never, but that's the way this race unfolds. Sometimes the break goes on the first lap, second lap. Occasionally it can be quite deep into the race, but generally speaking, we see the race-winning move go very, very early on in the Lincoln Grand Prix across both men's and women's races. It's just that critical. Behind it, there's a few they're still working, but they're almost, I wouldn't say it's unfair to say they're resigned to their fate, but they know they've got a big task on their hands here, trying to bring this back.
A very big task again. Dixon being very vocal that she wants this chasing group to work, and it's quite surprising as well, because Cams Basso have no riders represented in this leading group, and they have a number of riders within this race. You'd think they'd want to try and contribute to that pace to put themselves in a position of taking this title. They have also a few riders who are eligible for the under-23 title, with Katie Scott and Eiley Gardner. So really for Cams Basso, in their best interest to contribute to the pace.
Yeah, it is quite strange, unless their tactic isn't to try and go hard on the climb and split it rather than bring everybody back. But it's holding steady. The last time check we had was the same as that one, 40 seconds. And here are the Cams Basso team trying to ride. That is Gardner again. I mean, she's clearly, we know how well she climbs, so once the road starts to kick up, that's when she can make that little bit of difference. But the rider who's just behind her from Pro Noctis, well, they won't do anything at all. The local team, they have the circuit race champion in that front group, who is looking very, very good indeed. And that's 40 seconds is a lot of tarmac at this sort of speed, isn't it? It almost looks, I mean, in real terms, it still isn't a massively significant amount, but when you look at the yawning chasm of empty road, puts it really into perspective.
And when you think we're only a few kilometres from the lower slopes of Michaelgate again, so the laps soon come round, don't they? And the effort required, especially when we're seeing the intermittent working of this chasing group.
Yeah, fascinating stuff here on this really sticky little bit of road. So our 83-odd riders that have started out this race has been reduced already pretty significantly, as the group continues to be led behind. Our 11 riders out in front, still working very, very well indeed. So I couldn't quite identify that rider through, but great bit of blocking there by Drops-Le-Col. And there's Dixon on the left-hand side, has had enough of this. She knows that the race is moving away from her. Still a long way to go, but she knows unless she can get across soon, and she could do with a willing breakaway compatriot as well. So Story Racing, quick to get on her wheel. A shake of that, a rueful shake of the head. She's frustration starting to set in now.
It certainly is. For Dixon, as I said before, she has that capability of being able to do this, but also, although she's this has all come back together, another shake of the head. If she continues with this injection of pace through this feed zone, as we said before, deceptively rising this part of the road, so she can still do the damage, keep that effort into the lower slopes of Michaelgate and really hit it from the bottom to try and make that bridge.
Yeah, definitely. She's clearly got that punch, hasn't she? But still in the early stage of this race, there's a lot of fresh legs. So they're certainly not going to just let a rider of her class bridge across the gap. They're going to try and go with her. So she's in a very, very difficult position. And again, another few seconds have been taken from our front group now. 47 seconds it is for our lead group as they hit the Michaelgate once more. Oh, they're on the approach to the Michaelgate, as I should say. This is this very, very quick run-in. And this looks like, well, this is the second group on the road again, and that's that horrible little kick up before the drop down, which really slows the pace, and again is one of the hardest parts on this circuit. But they're stretching things out here, but 47 seconds at this sort of speed, that's a lot of road. It'd be roughly 700-800 meters.
Rider who has been noticeably anonymous, Hannah Barnes. We haven't seen her in that
that
peloton
was interesting. It's a good
for
point.
a while.
Very, very good point indeed. Just looking back down the group, unless she's not feeling good at all, but she was at the front last time up the Michaelgate, but she is, she's certainly not here at the present time. So this time up will be third time up. So this race is really, really moving very, very quickly indeed. Couldn't quite bridge it. I'm just wondering if she's had a bit of a problem here as we hit the lower slopes of the Michaelgate. Remember, it's only 250 metres long, but it rises around 130 metres in very, very short order. Average 11%, pitches of 20.
And even some parts, 27.6% on this Michaelgate.
Top stat.
It is so difficult, and to be able to ride it from the front, Anna Henderson, again, always opting to try and be in that smoother section of road, try and get herself into the gutter. It's a real risk, isn't it, especially with the growing crowds and fans at the side of the road, but she always wants to take it up from the front, keep herself out of trouble.
Shrosby on the front at the moment, looking very good there for Team London Brother UK, opting for the centre of the road. Some riders are happy to ride on the cobbles because you talked about it earlier on. If you do ride on the left or the right, it is smoother, but you do risk clipping your pedal, either your left or the right, depending on the side of the road that you choose. Another 4 seconds taken now by our lead as well, heading towards a minute. As Piper Georgia now moves, keeps her position of second place. So this group looking good. Trying to get a sense of anybody maybe starting to struggle in that group, but they still look pretty evenly matched at the moment, as a few splits are occurring now from the chasing group.
Few riders taking their opportunity. They're starting to feel good. They sense that danger. They're wanting to try and break things up and try and go away. One rider there from Aero Coach in that purplish type jersey. Here comes Basso again with 2 riders up towards the front. Looks like Eiley Gardner and Natalie Grinser, who are up towards the front in that red and fluorescent jerseys. So they are wanting to try and split things up.
Yeah, no sign of Hannah Barnes. That's very. I'm wondering if she's had some sort of mechanical issue, to be perfectly honest with you, because that isn't the way she was riding up last time. She looked pretty good, but certainly not there or near the head of affairs here.
Looking at some of the facial expressions, it's been no easy feat out in that chasing group at all, especially with the stress of the constant fight.
It's a very, very difficult attrition. And there she is at the back. I'm wondering if she's had some sort of difficulty, because I can't see something as catastrophic as a form shift in just one lap. I would imagine she might have had some sort of mechanical as the lead group. I mean, I'm just hypothesising here. I don't know that information for sure, but that did seem very, very strange indeed. As this group continues to move apace, they're well clear of the Castle Square now and heading down through Newport back into Yarborough Crescent, and this group looking very good. But 2 riders now have managed to extricate themselves from the chasing bunch behind, or the remnants of the bunch, and we'll get these riders identified as soon as we can. But Hannah, these 2 have opened up a nice lead. That's an impressive move. So our first clear, distinct break from the bunch, and they've opened up a pretty significant gap.
A really healthy lead there for those 2 riders, and that duo. They'll have that want and that cohesion to work together as well to try and make their way and try and bridge that gap. They'll continuing working together, and with the chasing group behind in that main peloton, with no real impetus, no real cohesion. Again, those 2 riders just able to continue to grow their lead. Trying to identify who those 2 riders are.
Yeah, they're both climbing very, very well indeed. As our break continues to relay, 50 seconds now it is. So they've stolen back a second. I think that is to the chasing group, in fact.
Yeah, Victoria Smith, one of those riders who is chasing at the moment over the top, and it has to be done, doesn't it? Here we see our 2 chasers, Louise Hart of Campinese Velo Performance and Victoria Smith. So as you see, working very, very well together, and they sense that on that lap they had the legs. They know that things, despite numerous attempts and numerous chases from the peloton, they know it's not working out, so if they want to try and bridge the gap, they have to go on the climb, Matt.
Yeah, they certainly do. We're well into well over an hour of racing and now done. So 3 laps completed. These laps are coming by very, very quick. Got to make sure I keep an eye on these laps. But 3 laps completed. But this is a very decent chasing group, relaying well. Victoria Smith from Aero Coach. She's the rider sat in second position. They're number 3. And she is sat on the wheel of Louise Hart from Championess Velo Performance. And meanwhile, back in the front, well, what a day Drops Lacole, supported by Tempo, are having. They had a very, very strong women's tour. They've got the world hour record holder in their team as well. They're riding on the crest of a wave, and they've got to really think about how they approach these next 5 laps here. They've got strength there, but they've got some very, very strong individual riders who are looking very, very good, and one in particular is Alice Barnes rolling through. Will this be the last time she gets to ride that custom canyon of hers in the rather fetching national championship colours, or will she pull on that jersey again, defending her championship As we look a little bit further down, several riders have lost quite a lot of time. That's one of the riders from St Piran. So a good 3 or 4 minutes back already.
Yeah, Gemma Sargent there, just struggling with the pace. And this is our leading group. Get a real nice look at this. Sophie Wright from Ali BTC Ljubljana, the rider in that fluorescent and orange jersey. The rider who is again eligible for the under-23 title as well. Just come off the back of the women's tour where she helped her teammate Marta Bastianelli to a stage victory, and still some riders tackling the Michael Gate, so you can just get a sense of how difficult this climb, this race has already been. Just see there going through Jelana Bonella Allard. Also we have Chloe Vickers of Loughborough Lightning TRG just going through.
Yeah, well over a couple of miles behind now, I would imagine, as our group continues to relay very, very effectively. This is where we do appear to be getting just a little bit of picture breakup, so do forgive us for the 4G coverage that we've got on this race, but Alice Barnes looking very, very relaxed there. She's making this look easy. Even on the climb of the Michael Gate, she looks in complete and utter control, doesn't she? She looks very worried. We're just getting information through from our producer that Hannah Barnes, her sister, has sadly pulled out of the race, which is a big, big disappointment.
It's a real shame there. Trying to find some information as to what has happened. We haven't seen anything during the race, whether that be a mechanical, but perhaps just not feeling great at the moment. It has been a long season for some of these riders, especially the Barnes sisters who've been racing on the UCI Women's World Tour circuit. So hopefully, you know, it's a real shame to see Barnes out.
Yeah, it certainly was. Not too sure exactly what happens, but I think she knows that, well, I'm pretty certain as well, it's going to take something very special for anybody to get across this gap now as we head towards Burton Village for the 4th time. And this is that group that certainly believe, and they're working very, very well together. This is Victoria Smith from Aero Coach that we're focusing on at the moment. And it looks like she's got a full-on visor built into the helmet there. It's not something you often see in road racing, but all about the aero gains quite clearly. And then Louise Hart just in front of her. Both riding very, very well, but they've got a big job to do here. But if they can just keep this going, you just never know. If things get tactical in front, although I can't really see that happening at the moment, I think that group is they're so in control. I can't really see them taking their foot off the gas too much, but the door is still ajar here for these two riders to possibly get across, but it's a very big ask. What
we're seeing from both of these riders, they're sharing the workload. They've become a team. They've become united because it's both in their best interest to work together to try and close this gap to our leading group. And they could sense that in that peloton, despite the numerous attacks, the numerous moves, nothing was doing the damage to try and reduce the gap and bring back this deficit.
No, it certainly wasn't. If you don't feel the bunch is moving quick enough, sometimes there can be, and it's no individual rider's fault. It's just the fact you've got this big move up the road with a lot of the key favourites in the race, and then keeping momentum behind is very hard, and it can be quite frustrating. But these two riders, maybe not the riders that other riders at the other field would be necessarily worried about, have managed to break free. But to give them some credit where it's due, 42 seconds is the gap now. They were clearly the strongest of what's left of the peloton behind, because they broke clear on the fearsome slopes of the Michael Gate as this group out in front continue to relay through. DSM's Pfeiffer Georgie looking very good. Flick of the elbow there. Looks like a double turn is being asked of Rebecca, not Rebecca Richards, should I say. Strosby moving through. So we've got 12 riders in this front group. It's just a bit of a reminder, a bit of housekeeping for everybody. We're well into 3.5 laps of this British Elite Women's National Road Race Championships here in Lincoln, incorporating the under-23 race as well. And we've just got some images of Hannah Barnes sadly pulling out of the race. We'll move to those in just a few moments. Here we go. Just some riders just rounding the finish, and there it is, Hannah Barnes just to the left of the screen. She'll come back into vision in a moment. I think this will be her sadly pulling out. It's been a very, very long season. Her sister's in the breakaway, We're not too sure exactly what has happened, but she'll be taking no further part in the race, the former champion back in 2016. Big shame, but we've still got a spectacular race on our hands. This is a strong move, and at the moment, difficult to pick anybody from this one, isn't it? It's just too early to tell, and there've been no significant accelerations on the climb yet, have there?
Well, you see the riders that are in this group, a real mix of riders, some who've been racing out in the UCI Women's World Tour, the UCI professional races, the likes of Jo Tinley, who's solely been based in the UK, racing on the domestic scene, so very varying levels in terms of the levels in which they race at. A few riders who race for the UCI Continental Women's teams, the UCI Women's World Tour teams, so it's very wide open when we're seeing the talent coming through and the form that riders are getting towards the back end of the season. The likes of Jo Tinley, who races for a club team on the domestic circuit, but then you look at Pfeiffer Georgie, who took her first professional victory at in the middle of September. You see that form is coming through very late in the season, so really a rider to watch, the rider from Team DSM.
Certainly, she's certainly been doing her fair share, and from what I've seen so far, there doesn't appear to be any of the riders sort of sandbagging at all, or sitting on even from Drops Le Col's perspective. Although they've got 4 riders in here, they kind of could actually rest a rider, couldn't they? And they're surely going to be having some sort of communication, aren't they, as we move back on to the A57.
Just seeing a rider from Drops Le Col just having a slight problem, ever so slightly off the back of this group.
I think it's Tacey, isn't it?
Looks like the diminutive figure of Tacey, just trying to get herself back on. But now, Matt, we've got a few more riders trying to bridge across to this group. Lucy Gadd, one of the riders who has been in incredible form, trying to get across for Story Racing. Poppy Thompson also there with number 72 on her back for Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes. We also have number 27, that's Katie Scott, the under-23 rider from Cams Basso. Katie, another rider who finished the Women's Tour just a week ago, and now we're starting to see these 5 riders who have joined up with Victoria Smith and Louise Hart, who made that move on the Michaelgate climb. They're all working together straight away. As soon as those 3 riders bridged across to our chasing duo, straight away got into that formation, through and off.
Yeah, that is going to help the chances. I mean, given the fact that this breakaway have settled into a rhythm now, this is all about making sure they keep this pace high, but also that they try and get as much rest as possible. I think there is a distinct opportunity, or at least an opportunity at the very least, for this group to try and come across this gap. It's going to be a tall order, but certainly 5 riders, they've got a far better chance than just the 2. And clearly they're riders that are very strong, and they're actually working very well together here. So Victoria Smith from Aero Coach rolls through. She's been joined, well, she was originally with Louise Hart, and there is a teammate actually. So it's number 72 rolling through. That's Poppy Thompson, as you just mentioned, a teammate of the rider of Jo Tinley, of course, is in the front. Now, what are your thoughts on her actually bringing these riders across? Do you think bringing another rider for Jo to be assisted isn't a bad thing?
I think it could be a really good thing, and seeing the strength and the riders that are in that leading group, I think it will add some more strength, but also for Jo Tinley to have a rider there. As we mentioned before, the different levels within cycling. Jo, although she's incredibly experienced, she's in superb form. She races for a club team on the domestic scene, so for her to have a teammate in there, and as we saw the work that they did on Friday evening and how strong they work as a unit, it will be important that Jo has a teammate there towards the back end, especially when you see Drops Le Col supported by Temper have the 4 riders. Any rider that can have at least 1 extra rider within that front group to help and assist, do any chasing, because let's be honest, we're going to start to see some attacks and counter-attacks as we near the finish.
Yeah, it is quite an interesting one, because we quite often see in racing, if there's a counter-attack and a rider has somebody up front, that they've got a right not to work. But I think in this situation, and this is of no disrespect to the other riders in this group, I don't think that she'll be pulling anybody across that would overly worry anybody else. So it's just a numbers game, isn't it? I've just got assistance because Jo is clearly flying, and as you said, if she can give her some sort of assistance later in the race, it could be a massive benefit.
It will be a huge help. As you say, I don't think any of these riders will be a real threat to the title, but we never know if they take that opportunity. And we see the strength, especially of the duo who first made that move on Michaelgate, Victoria Smith and Louise Hart. It's not to say that they don't have that strength and the form in the legs to be able to go on and take this victory. And I think that's what's so wonderful about the national championships, that it is still very open. You can look at the start list and see who's strong on paper and who you would expect to win, but it doesn't always tell the full story.
Sometimes the national championships can be a very tactical game. As this is the composition of the group behind Victoria Smith, the Vero coach, Louise Hart of Campiness Velo Performance, Katie Scott there from Cams Basso, just rolling through in that yellow kit. Louise Hart and Victoria Smith, Poppy Thompson as well, teammate of our newly minted circuit race champion, who was actually just riding through on the front there in that red jersey. That is Jo Tindley. So 45 seconds it is to that group. So they have managed to steal a few inroads, about 5 seconds or so, but now it's holding steady. But this really is a class group, as I said before. Anna Shackley looking good as well. She's another rider, looks great on a bike, looks really composed, doesn't she? Definitely a threat, likes the climbs, but Anna Henderson as well, she's compact. She's got really long-term contract actually with Jumbo Visma until 2024. It shows how much belief and faith that team have got in the British rider.
And she excels on a course like this, a real typical classics course. So when we see how she rode in the Spring Classics earlier on in the season, especially at the Healthy Aging Tour, a 3-day stage race over in the Netherlands, we had a course that was very similar in style to what we have here at the Lincoln Grand Prix, incorporating the national championships with the cobble climb. Henderson was in the front group in that breakaway of the Vanberg, which is a cobbled climb. If you can believe it, it's actually made on a waste hill.
It's
so
on a tip, isn't it?
It's literally on a tip.
Yeah.
But it is a cobble climb all the way to the top, and she really excels. And you see how she's come into form, and she's really a force to be reckoned with. Although she's the sole representative of her team, Jumbo Visma, that she's able and she's well capable of taking the victory here today.
And this is the chase group behind. And this group is working very well indeed, that is for sure. This is a Lucy Gadd, another one of the under-23s from the ranks of the Story Racing team. Meanwhile, this is the group out in front, just gone through the feed zone. Henderson there just taking a bidon. As the wind continues to blow, you can get a real sense of how windy it is out here, and that will really play its part. Trees really blowing, leaves all over the place, a real autumnal feel. It's a British Championships of the falling leaves, isn't it? It's a wonderful racing circuit Lincoln Grand Prix has provided for so many years, but still a long way to go in this race. We're approaching, though, half distance, in fact. So like this little drag, this little kicker, it just gets steeper and steeper, doesn't it? It's a horrible little bit of road. It's worth repeating, though, because that we've seen a race winning attacks goal in that climb, and riders open up a gap before the run into the line. So if you can steal 5 seconds as a preemptive strike before the Michaelgate, that could be a key point to attack.
It's a real stinging part of the course, isn't it? And when you have got that fatigue in the legs, and if you can just when you know that your rivals are starting to suffer, it can really do the damage. And here you get a real a great representation of what this part of the course looks like. It's steeper, it looks deceptive on the front angle of the camera, but when you see it from behind, I think around 7-8% in gradient this part, so it really does the damage. And you start to see riders struggle on this section. Louise Hart putting the pressure down, and that has done some damage to Katie Scott of the Cams Basso team, and Lucy Gadd as well.
Yeah, you can just see the body language of Gadd. She was really struggling and to get the power down over the top of that climb. But this group has done well. They've stolen a few more seconds, back to 43 seconds, as Gad shuts the gap that has been opened up. And now we get the battle for position. Sophie Wright just moving through on the left-hand side there. Another one of the several under-23 riders in this front group. Plaza Trade, as mentioned before, for the LA BTC Ljubljana team. And clearly wants to be in pole position this time through. But the riders have the luxury of picking their line. It's such it's so nice to be in a breakaway in this race, because this is one of the most stressful races on the calendar, as Wright opts for the left-hand side there. So she's got to really concentrate. It's not just the effort on this climb, it's the focus and the concentration, isn't it, of making sure that you're getting your lines right.
But also making sure that your back wheel isn't slipping. So again, tyre pressure is really vital on a course like this. You see how slippery the cobbles look. You can start to see the moss and little bits of grass, tufts of grass coming through. So
great shot, isn't it? Yeah. You can just see Henderson there. She's just moved away from the curve there. So leading this group at the moment, looking very good. It's Pfeiffer Georgie on the left-hand side for Team DSM. Just cuts across, and this particular section of cobbles where they turn right, it's flattened ever so slightly here, then it kicks up again for another 50 metres or so. It's only a very, very short climb, but you're moving up it so slowly, it almost seems to take forever. And you can just see that, what you just talked about, Hannah, that grass and that moss on this surface, making traction very, very difficult indeed, as we look a little bit further down the Michaelgate to our chasing group of 5.
It's a climb of two halves, isn't it? Because you have the Michaelgate climb, which is around 200 metres, as we said before. Then you take that left turn onto this tarmac section, again back onto the cobbles where it's a little bit technical. You have the little jink in the road, the little pinch point, and then you go over the top through that finish line, and deceptively again slightly rises.
Certainly does. This is the little bit that I used to remember. You can almost take a bit of a breath here. You can almost take a little bit of breath just on this section before gulping in the air and feeling that burn on this last little section before you mercifully get a brief little bit of respite on the tarmac. And even the chasing group has splintered on this climb. So there's Katie Scott just at the back of this group here, starting to struggle now. So it's not exactly the cohesion that's broken, it's just that the riders are really, really starting to suffer. Will they all get back into contention over the stop and start to fight again as a collective unit? So there we go, 4 laps to go now. We are just on half distance, 8 laps in total for the Elite Women's Road Race Championships. 63 miles, that's around 101 kilometres. We have now reached the halfway point, and the gap is 45 seconds to our chasing group of 5, which is now splintered. So they're all riding in 1s and 2s, that little group behind, as our leaders continue to ride very, very effectively. This break, if you've just joined us here, went away on lap number 1, or the first ascent of the fearsome climb of the Michaelgate. The key part of this wonderful circuit that has been in existence since 1956, and this is the second occasion that we've had the British Road Race Championships incorporated into the Lincoln Grand Prix. I think I can safely say this is my favourite British race. The British Championships, of course, but the Lincoln Grand Prix is something very, very special indeed. And we've had, over the last couple of days, a sportif as well, so opportunities for the local community and riders fancying a taste of this iconic race to have a go and climb the Michaelgate, as we get confirmation of the new lead. Gone out again, another 5 seconds. So this race is still pretty close. They haven't pulled out an enormous lead, but then they haven't really needed to have to. They accelerated away on that first lap, and now they've settled into this rhythm. Everybody working very well. And I'll give you a run-through of the riders in this group. The rider just rolling through on the front there, that was Sophie Wright. As we move back to our chasers, who have coalesced again. There's Gad, who's doing a big, long turn on the front. Lucy Gad, number 23 rider for Story Racing. Actually, it does look like they have lost one of their number. I think it's Katie Scott from Cams Basso, who has been jettisoned from this chasing group of 5. And now got their own neutral service car that will slot in behind them. So they just need now to regroup and try and get into a chase formation. So our 4-rider chasing group still relaying through, still under a minute. So it's certainly, they just need to keep on riding, because sometimes what you do get in a race like this, in the Lincoln Grand Prix, at some point, Hannah, the front group will start to fracture. They're riding unified at the moment. There's been no attacks. They know they're in a good position. They know in these early stages they don't need to push too much, because the last couple of laps of this race, even the final ascent up the Michaelgate, you need to keep something under your hood. You can't ride 8 laps full throttle on this circuit. It is so testing. So the door is open behind still. If it's under a minute, they're still with an opportunity of placing in the top 10, because we'll see riders fall away and opportunities to present themselves of actually moving up through the field as it splits.
It certainly is, and we speak about the tactical aspect of this race, and a rider being tactically astute, and it's not only knowing the position, knowing how the race is going to unfold, but also making sure that you do keep something back for the end. If you want to go on and take the victory, you have to have something left in the tank to be able to cross the line first. So it's so important that where you can, you're saving energy, whether that be in the wheels, making sure that you're eating consistently, whether that be gels, bars, making sure that you're taking a feed every time you go through the feed zone. And feeding closes with 20 kilometers to go, so they can only feed on laps between laps 3 to 6. So the final couple of laps, you can't take a feed, and you don't want to get to those final 20 kilometers having started to deplete your energy stores, really starting to suffer. So important that you make sure you keep yourselves topped up.
Yeah, and this is this sort of distance certainly not the longest race in the world either. It's a compact distance, but the Lincoln Grand Prix has always been characterised by its slightly shorter distance. Even for the men, it's worth comparing. The men only do 166 k's, which for men is quite short. The same for the women, it's short, but this race is so physically demanding, it doesn't need to be any longer. Its beauty is in the slightly kind of, it's not a brief race, it's still arduous and still, a test of endurance, but it's on the slightly short side. It just doesn't need to be any longer. Look at the damage that's been caused already in just a few laps.
And this was on the first lap, wasn't it, when the first ascent up the Michaelgate, where we saw the damage really be done by Anna Christine of Drops Le Col. And as you say, the arduous, the hard race, the hard conditions, not only the parkour but also the weather conditions today certainly adds to that. And if it's raced aggressively from the front, as we saw, it put a lot of riders on the back foot. They've been left chasing.
Well, these 4 riders have lost, unfortunately, Katie Scott. She was jettisoned on the climb of the Michaelgate, the 4th ascent. Next time through will be 5. As we look a little bit further up, just descending through Burton Village, just coming out the back end of Burton Village now, in fact. But this group behind still relaying well, and they are moving well clear of the peloton as well, or the remnants of the bunch, shall I say. They've now got their own neutral service car. It normally means you've got between 30 seconds and a minute. So what these riders got to do is just be patient now, ride their own race. On some of these longer stretches, they will still just see the flotilla of vehicles behind the front, because they're still under a minute behind, which halfway through a race of this nature isn't a bad position at all to be in.
And that will give added motivation to this group, won't it, when they can see the leading group out front, that they know that the work that they are doing is starting to close that gap ever so slowly, but surely it is happening. And I think having them within the sights adds that motivation to keep working together and keep that teamwork. Onto this section, though, the leading group out of sight, out of mind, if I can get my words out here, Matt.
No, it certainly is. This is a really quick section. Probably not going as quick as they normally would in the dry. They're just taking these corners wisely, a little bit more cautiously. They don't need to take any risks now. And because we're in a pretty rural area, there's lots of bits of mud, and as you talked about before, because of the time of year, there's the leaves on the road, which can be really dangerous, in fact. But no risks taken by our front group. As we just briefly lose the quality of our pictures again, we're on the furthest part of the circuit, away from Lincoln before we head back in a southeasterly direction. Just on the front there, that's April Tacey. She's got with her for company Danny Christmas, Joss Loudon and Anna Christian. So Drops Lacole, supported by Temper, have 4 riders in this breakaway. So this break continuing to relay well. What kind of, I mean, what's happening here? Oh, I think this is another rider trying to get across the gap. She had a bit of a problem. Louise Hart has been detached from this group. She was going a little bit slower on the descent. We do often see in these conditions, and we see it across the board, men's and women's racing, quite a disparity in terms of conservative descending, especially in the wet. You see big gaps across the board in riders' ability to corner at speed in the wet. It's quite an art, isn't it?
It is, and you know, for Louise Hart, she took the descent very gingerly. The corners as well are very, very tight, so she wants to make sure that she's taking no risks whatsoever. She's made a huge effort to get herself into this position, into this chasing group, although she's using a lot of energy at the moment to try and get herself back into this chasing group. She wanted to make sure that she made her way down the descent as safely as possible, and she has done that, but now forced to chase, and it is a huge effort. I mean, the wind coming from the left-hand side here, the crosswind making it ever so difficult for Hart to get back to the chasing 3.
It certainly is. It's almost agonising, isn't it? And she's moving pretty quickly, but essentially she's doing. Well, if you look at the 3 riders in front, they're moving at the same speed but sharing the effort. Although they have eased a little bit here. That's a lovely little collection of flags. Go Brits go. Some British Cavendish just on the left-hand side there. Cleethorpes on tour. That was almost like, wouldn't call it, it wasn't a corner, it wasn't Dutch corner, it'd be British corner, but it was on a straight bit of road. So what would you call it? British chicane?
Or British Straights.
British Straights, yeah, let's call it British Straights.
Straights.
Okay, so we've gone through British Straights, 57 seconds for a lead group, a chasing group of 4. And when you look at how many vehicles are behind, that's a good few seconds. They will, on this particular stretch of road, it's about a kilometre long, they will still have hope. I mean, this race, although it's moving away, it's not moving away massively quickly. You can see, right in front, you can see that flotilla of vehicles just behind. So still hope for this group to salvage something in this race. And Gad, one of the most eager, happy to do a long turn on the front here and keep the pace high.
She is, just noticing there, that was the first real moment that we saw Poppy Thompson of the Pro Noctis Red Chili team not going through and doing her turn. We're starting to see, she shake of the head there, she doesn't want to go through. She does have a teammate in the leading group in Joe Tinley. Now she's sensed that this is perhaps a bad move. She's patrolled it well, as the team did in the Circuit National Championships on Friday, but she doesn't want to contribute any more to this chase.
You do wonder, because generally riders won't have radios in national championships, so you do wonder, the only time to really have a conversation, albeit a brief one, is to drop back to your team car. She hasn't got a team car there, and many of the women's team just have one team car anyway, and I think you're only allowed one in the British Championships. It could be that somebody spoke to her through the pits area going through the start-finish. Okay, you sit on now, because I think Gad could be quite an outlier, a bit of a dark horse rider. She's been going so strong, she can sense the eagerness that she's got. I do think now that the teammate of Joe Tinley has been told, sit back and just don't do anything.
Gad is willing to make that move. She's not afraid to put herself on the line to try and go for the victory. We've seen that in the Circuit National Championships on Friday. We've seen that throughout today, that she's willing to make that effort, to take that risk, to put herself into a winning position, because being in that chasing group, she was completely out of contention. She made a move over the top of the Michael Gate along with Katie Scott and Poppy Thompson, bridged across to our chasing duo, and Gad, you can see she's visibly wanting this group to continue to work together. Victoria Smith on the front now for Aero Coach. She's doing the bulk of the work down the A57, this road down to Saxelby Road. And every time that Poppy Thompson is in the second position, she's just disrupting that chase. So all these riders asking what the time gap is to our moto commissaire. They want to know what the deficit is and if they're actually making any inroads to our leading group of 12 riders. And just to give you a rundown of who our 12 riders are in the lead, with just less than a minute's gap. Alice Barnes, the defending champion for Canyon SRAM, Going through your screen there in the purple jersey, that's Anna Shackley of SD Works, April Tacey there for Drops L'École, and they have 4 riders within this group. Anna Christian, Danny Christmas, who is racing her final ever race of her career. She will retire after these national championships. So for Danny Christmas, wants to go out with a bang. Joss Loudon as well in this group. So 4 riders: Anna Christian, Danny Christmas, Joss Loudon, and April Tacey for Drops L'École. Also, we have Sophie Wright from LABTC Ljubljana in that group. Joe Tinley, who won that National Criterium Championships on Friday. Josie Nelson, the young under-23 rider from Team Coop High-Tech Products. Pfeiffer Georgie from Team DSM. Anna Henderson from Team Jumbo-Visma, and Danielle Shrewsbury of Team LDN Brother UK. Here is Josie Nelson, the rider in the white and blue jersey of Team Coop High-Tech Products, racing for a club team, Isorex, out in Belgium for the majority of this year. Took a number of victories in Comess racing. Carl Lima and Tona Lima, they saw her potential, only 19 years of age, and saw what she's capable of. And they signed her onto the UCI Continental Professional Women's Team, and since then she's gone from strength to strength. She had a handful of top 10 finishes in the Women's Tour last week, really showing her potential and going from strength to strength. So here is our leading group of 12 riders, still keeping the workload going through, sharing the workload between the 12 of them.
Yep, it's difficult to get a sense of who's kind of starting to struggle or not at the moment. Everybody looks pretty composed, and all of these riders at this level, many of these riders will battle it out internationally on a week-by-week basis. They'll know each other's kind of strengths and weaknesses, and won't want to give too much away either. Even if you're suffering, you need to just try and bluff a little bit, don't you? You know, so I'd say that regardless of what's been going on here, everybody here looks pretty composed. The fatigue is going to start to set in now. We're well over half distance. This race is going to start to bite now, but nobody is going to want to give that away to the others, are they?
They're certainly not. They are certainly not. And just seeing there, Danny Shrewsbury of the Team LDN Brother UK team in that fading blue jersey, made a huge surge to go through and do her turn in through and off, using a lot more energy. Alice Barnes was acute to that. She didn't want to expend so much energy just to follow that move, so just kept at her own tempo there. Yep. Rolling through, just let the gap go ever so slightly, but made sure that she didn't eat into her stores.
It's a real kind of nuanced element of bike racing, is rolling through in a break, isn't it? And quite often you'll get somebody maybe just a little bit less experienced that surge through, rather than keeping that pace even and constant. They'll actually give a bit of a kick, and quite often there'll be a little bit of a gap that opens up, but rather than panic, this is looks like the chasing group of 4, who are looking very, very good, are, I say, about to be caught. This is this imperceptibly uphill section, so the gap still looks like it's about 10 or 15 seconds, but the bunch still have got a lot of fight there. So the race, relatively speaking, Hannah, is still relatively close together. It's only about 1:20 across from the lead group through the break to the back of the bunch.
That time gap has plateaued, hasn't it?
Yeah,
despite
it has.
the leading group of 12 riders continuing to work together, despite the different attacks and riders trying to make their way across the accelerations. We've seen a number of those, haven't we? But this chasing group of 4 has been the most notable that have tried to do the work, and despite them all sharing that workload from behind, as you say, still a lot of firepower within those riders, within those teams, within those legs. And again, Cams Basso, the team that have missed this group. Katie Scott was originally part of this chasing group of 5, now down to 4, and it is, by the looks of things, those figures of Cams Basso in the fluorescent and red jerseys who are on the front. They need to put themselves within a chance sooner rather than later as these laps tick down.
Yeah, definitely. They were pretty happy to have someone in that breakaway, as you said, but now she's actually come back. They want to be back in part of this race, and they still know that given the gap out in front, this is still doable, but they've got a lot of work to do. As our leading group continues to press ahead, it won't be long before we hit, for the 5th time, the fearsome slopes of the Michaelgate here. This is the chasing group behind. A bit of a shake of the head there. So let's have a little look to see if this group are going to be caught. It does look as if they are. It's of course Pippi Thompson just on the front there. She was sitting on because she has representation in the front. Jo Tindley is in that front group of riders, but it is Cams Tafosi bringing this gap down now. And they've shut it gap down very, very quickly on this horrible little drag before we turn right and drop at pace down Yarborough Road and into the finish again at Michaelgate. Interesting to see what the time gap is now. I think it might have gone out just a little bit as we see another acceleration. Yeah, 105, I was right. So the gap gone out a little bit more. This is the first time we've actually seen the lead go above a minute as Leah Dixon now takes to the front. What can Leah Dixon do on this climb? With a gap at 1 minute and 5, it's not game over, is it? It's
certainly not game over. All it takes is an injection of pace and acceleration from this group, a big explosive attack. Even just the chasing group, this peloton, whittled down peloton working together, sharing the workload, can certainly do the damage to the time gap of our leading riders. But Dixon, for the last few laps, she's sat quietly. She hasn't been towards the fore of the peloton, so she's been saving a little bit of energy, perhaps coming round to her a little bit of a second wave maybe, that she's found that there's been a few riders go off the front, a few attacks, a little group gone, and she was getting noticeably frustrated, wasn't she? But she's gone back, relaxed a little bit, and now come back towards the fore.
Definitely. You need to, you can't just continue attack on a circuit like this. It will ultimately take its toll. But it looks like the one rider starting to struggle just at the back of this group, just by her body language and her leg speed, is Jo Tindley. In fact, she looks like she is starting to lose contact. It looks as well, it's Danny Christmas just starting to struggle at the back. This is just Loudon on the front at the moment. He's looking very, very strong indeed. Henderson straight onto the wheel of the Drops Le Col rider. Barnes also measuring her effort really well on this climb. Yes, it is indeed. Tindley starting to struggle, and this is a big, big acceleration. Look at the gap that started to open up now as we get to the top of the Michaelgate, back off the cobbles onto the bit of tarmac briefly before hitting the cobbles again. So a few gaps starting to open, and a few of the first grimaces that I've seen in this race so far.
There will come a point, won't there, where the legs just say no, you have nothing left. That elastic snaps for these riders, and there's only so many times that you can make that effort to chase back on, and it looks like two riders have been detached from this group, Danielle Christmas and Jo Tindley, so they'll have to fight their way back on to get back into contention.
Well, this is very, very interesting. It's a little bit further down the slopes. The big move on the right-hand side there. This is the bunch, so it's starting to whittle itself down again. But that was quite interesting. As a first distinct acceleration here. Leah Dixon trying to do something on the right-hand side. Good leg speed here. She's clearly feeling good, but it is now or never. And who's she got with her for company? Number 4 there, and that's Anne Morris of the Aerolab Ward Wheel Z. And the rider is clearly having a good day, but Dixon now, this is a determined attempt.
It is. She's got all that built-up frustration of the group not working, the race. She had no one to help her and assist in the chase. She missed that initial move when it first went, and she's got all that built-up frustration. She knows that she can do the damage on this climb, and you can see the gap starting to open up, the facial expressions on some of these riders. And look at that explosive acceleration there from Dixon has started to open up a gap.
She's looking good, actually. She was. Did you see how early she managed to get it onto the big ring over the top of the climb? None of the other women behind were doing that. They were really on the limit, but she found what you need and continued that momentum over the top. Now, this is a solo pursuit. Leah Dixon, Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank, the American squad that she rides for. The gap, I would imagine, would have shut down. It was 104 to the bunch at the bottom of the Michaelgate, and she's opened up a big, big gap, and two riders indeed have been dropped from this group. As you said, it was Christmas and Tindley, and they're not out of sight. They've still got a chance. I'm wondering if the rest of the Drops Le Col riders will actually ease off a little bit and let her get back on, but I'm not too sure. But this is Dixon, who has broken well clear of the peloton behind.
Yeah, she's already through the castle walls, Looks like a few riders trying to come across. She's not going to wait for those, though. She's going to pursue this solo effort to go in pursuit of our leading group of 12. Although 2 riders have been ejected from the group with Tinley and Christmas, they're going to do everything that is possible to try and get themselves back into contention. And we see now Joss Loudon, she's just taking a look behind to see where her teammate Danielle Christmas is. As you said, Matt, I think it is in their best interest just to allow the 2 riders to come back, because Tinley, looking at the way she's riding, she is no real threat to this overall title at the moment.
Yep, they're now going to get back on again. You can just see they're just at the back of this group. Henderson is rider number 10, and then riders 11, 12, Tindley and Christmas. So a good bit of riding there as Hannah Barnes rolls through. Interesting, Barnes didn't really react to that acceleration, and you talk about saving energy riding through, not doing any sharp accelerations, and you've got to be really mindful of the way you ride the Michaelgate climb as well. If you're kind of confident, and everybody's only got a limited amount of accelerations, sharp accelerations on that climb before you've got nothing left. So actually, if the group's together and there are only small gaps, you can actually just undercook it a little bit and then just roll back. And that's what I think Alice is actually doing. She seems to me to be riding her race very, very controlled, and isn't responding to things she doesn't need to right now.
It's a real art, isn't it, as a rider, to be able to do that and be confident in yourself. Just being aware of what you're doing, where you can save energy, how you can save energy. Alice Barnes, she's incredibly tactically astute as well, so she knows exactly where she can save that energy. She's been a previous victor here in Lincoln, and in the Lincoln Grand Prix, back-to-back victories in 2016 and 2017. Took the silver medal behind Lizzie Deignan in 2015 when we last had the national championships here.
Well, Dixon riding solo. She's had a reasonably successful championship so far. As we see, a big attack. Well, this is very, very interesting indeed. I think this is Danny Christmas has actually gone clear. That's a very, very early attack. Obviously, her teammates won't do anything at all. That's well, I wouldn't call it surprising. It's just something I didn't necessarily expect so early on, but she's been brought back to heel very, very quickly indeed. And that's by Daniel Shrosby, just bringing her back in the blue there. That was an interesting little move there. Wondering what that was all about. Especially
considering that she was really starting to feel the effort in her legs on that ascent of the Michaelgate climb. You would think that she'd make her way back to this group, spend as many kilometres as she possibly can, just to save the legs, recover from the effort that she's been doing so far. At the moment, it was almost like just expending a lot of energy for no reason.
Yeah, definitely, that was a bit of a strange one. Again, riders do that from time to time. They sort of confound us a little bit. But tell you what, Dixon looks pretty good here, pedalling really, really fluidly, and that suggests to me she's actually feeling good. But she's got a big job to do here to try and get across the gap. But we know that she can time trial well. Took that bronze medal earlier in the week on Thursday in the National TT Championship, so that's a real good indicator of form, because that was a stacked field, and she's in full TT mode here. Look at the focus on her face, trying to get as low as she can, but a real lovely fluidity about her pedaling style here.
And you look at the gear she's pushing, almost towards the very bottom of a block, on the bottom of the cassette, as we see the wind coming onto the right-hand shoulder here of this part of the course, over that bridge. This is one of those long sections where she'd hope that she can see that group out in front, or at least the convoy out in front.
Well, you get an indicator if you're making any progress then, don't you? You can slowly see them coming towards you a little bit, and this is where she'll be enjoying the luxury, it's only a small luxury, of a slight cross tailwind here as well. That's why she's managing to move at a pace, so trying to shut that gap down. And I mean, what do you know about Leah as a bike handler? Because I tell you, this next crucial section, if you can descend at speed, you can take back 10 or 15 seconds just in this next series of left and right hand corners.
You certainly can, and if you can try and carry as much speed as you possibly can down that descent into those S-bends and out onto that country lane, that's again another bit of energy that you've been able to save, because you've carried that free speed from the descent. Try and keep your effort as linear as possible as well for this duration.
They just lost our pictures briefly, although she's back on the screen now. That's quite meta, isn't it? We're watching, we're commentating on the big screen there. So Dixon still looking very good. That is the top of the Michaelgate. And that is where in, well, 3 and a bit laps time, our national champion will be crowned, because we're well over halfway. Last time through it was 3 laps, so next time through it will be 2 to go as Pfeiffer Georgie of Team DSM rolls through there in that dark kit. Anna Henderson, the new time trial champion, also rolls through. She's looked very, very strong at all, as well, should I say. We have 12 riders in this front group, and I might as well remind you of the composition of this front group. We've got the defending champion Alice Barnes of Canyon SRAM in that dark multicoloured kind of space age kit. I do like the Canyon SRAM kit. Also Sophie Wright of LABTC Ljubljana in the mix. 4 riders from Drops Lacole, supported by Tempo. That's Anna Christian, Danny Christmas, Joss Loudon and April Tacey, who's under 23. Also in the mix, Joe Tindley dropped on the Michael Gate but is now back in contact. We also have Josie Nelson of Team Co-op High Tech Products in that white and blue kit. Pfeiffer Georgie, I just talked about a few moments ago, from Team DSN. Anna Henderson in the yellow and black of Jumbo Visma. Danielle Shrosby of Team LDN Brother, probably the tallest rider in this group in that navy blue kit. And rounding out our 12 riders out in front is Anna Shackley, another very talented under-23 rider riding for Team SD Works. And this is the solo chaser from Wales. This is Leah Dixon riding for the American Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. Can she see them on this long stretch of road? It'd be good if we could get a little bit of a time check here. But this is where, after this little, just when we go through, what do we call it? British Straits. British Straits. Yeah. That's when it is like a runway, isn't it? You can see all the way to the big T junction. So hopefully she will have them in her sights.
And there is British Straits just in the background of our leading group.
We've unofficially, myself and Hannah, unofficially called this bit the British Straits because of the effort that's gone into decorating it with our national flag. Of course, this is the British Championships.
It's tremendous, isn't it, that the fans, they always come out in force here at many races, but especially in Lincoln. It has a very special atmosphere, and people putting in a lot of effort to come out and support the national championships.
That was dodgy, wasn't it? Did you see that little rueful shake of the head there? Just about taking a drink from a bottle with one hand on the bars. I'd come to grief in this very race, on this very section, took a gel out of my pocket, riding one-handed, hit a stone, wiped out, and that was me. I mean, the elbow gone, knee gone, trying to chase to get back on, and ate a gel, and that's what can happen sometimes.
It shows how easy it can be done.
Yeah.
If you hit a little rock or a little jink in the road. Anna Christian there, you can just see a replay. She was just about to, there we go, there was that little section of road. I mean, she held it well, and being at the front as well, had she come off there, that could have done some real damage to that front group.
Definitely, and all it was just like a little nodule of, it didn't look like a pothole, it was a slight rise in the tarmac there, wasn't it, where it probably melted at some point. It certainly won't be melting the tarmac today in these miserly low conditions, around 11 degrees as Pfeiffer Georgie just takes them through this left-hand bend. And Dixon still away, but there's a rider trying to come across the gap. I think that was the same rider from before. I think
Anna Morris there, from Aerolab Ward Wheel Z, is trying to come across. She was a rider who was very active towards the beginning of the race, who was trying to do some damage to try and bridge across earlier on in the second lap. So Anna Morris wanting to try and bridge across to Leah Dixon. Anna Morris, a rider who spends a lot of time on the track doing pursuiting, team pursuit, individual pursuit. And you can see this really is a time trial-like effort now to try and bridge across to Leah Dixon. And if these two riders can join up, when you have the strength of both of these added in, it would give Leah Dixon a moment just to recover on the wheels of Anna Morris. They can work well together.
Definitely, the two is better than one. I mean, she's certainly not going to wait for her, that's for certain, because we're at a crucial part of the race. They cannot, she doesn't want to ease up until she sees her just within a few metres, then take a bit of a breath, get on a wheel, start working together. From what we saw of Morris there, as you said, that real track craft, that pursuit ability, and she was getting very low, so clearly really aware of how important it is to get into a nice aero position. And just as we say that, we just see Dixon drop her elbows, drop the kind of frontal position a little bit. Riders more than ever I mean, it might seem like an obvious statement, but years ago, riders weren't seemingly quite as aware of as how important it was to get your body position right. But now, riders, in no uncertain terms, know that you need to get that frontal area as low as possible, don't you?
The more information that we've gained, especially over the last 10 years, let's say, of how important it is to make sure that your position on the bike is vital, and how much difference it makes to the aerodynamics of yourself, especially your body position, not only your bike and equipment. But Leah Dixon, I know, spends a lot of time focusing on her aerodynamics, both on the time trial bike, on the road bike as well. All these key details, these marginal gains that we speak about, making sure that you have your position dialed. And of course, now unable to do that super tuck, banned by the UCI on the 1st of April this year. You have to find other ways to make sure that you can try and get your frontal area as low as possible.
There's a great, no, you're totally right, everybody aware of that. It's all about comfort as well, so you can get aero, but there's quite often the most aerodynamic position is a position you can only hold for a limited period of time when getting across a gap or something. But then you also have to be mindful of a position that you're riding in for hours and hours, because that can be massively inefficient. But Barnes, who's taking her turn on the front, Pfeiffer Georgie now just rolling through there. This is that left-hand turn. And back onto Long Keys Road, and it's another very, very long straight before we swing right underneath the A46 again. And Dixon actually looks to be moving clear again of Morris. Morris hasn't managed to get across the gap, so Dixon riding well. We haven't got a clock, but maybe might we do our own clock at the top of the microgate next time, just to see if we can get a little bit of a check on the progress, if any, that Dixon is making. It's so much easier in this front group. Look at the amount of recuperate there. There it is, 1 minute and 15 is the gap. So she's not losing buckets of time, but she's shipped another 10 seconds in the last 3 or 4 miles.
But that, of course, the time gap to the peloton, so perhaps the gap
right.
to Dixon could be around 1 minute or just less than a minute. As I say, we'll put the time check on through the next time on Michaelgate to try and get an efficient time gap to our lone chaser of Leah Dixon, Welsh National Road Race champion, won that title a couple of weeks ago. Really come into form. She struggled a little bit this year with her form, with the races. But as I say, finding the form towards the back end of the season, and it's not always a bad thing, is it, to have that a little bit of a rough patch in your season, in your form. Start to see the success. She was racing in the Tour of the Ardèche only just over a month ago, came to the Welsh National Championships, and I think her ride at the Time Trial Championships on Thursday is a real key indicator of where her form is heading, and perhaps why she was, and we saw her so visibly frustrated in the peloton when there was no real chase to get back our lead in 12 riders.
It can be so frustrating, especially this race. You can have good form, but you can just miss the boat early on if you don't get into, or you just ride out of position, or you just struggle in the opening Ks. I mean, quite often you can be in really good form, but not actually feel good at the start of the race. I mean, it can be quite the amount of different sets of sensations that you go through over a 3, 4, 5 hour race is nothing short of mind-boggling. Sometimes you can feel like you want to go back to bed in the opening few stages, but then you come good at the end. But in a race like this, you do need to be on it, as we've said before. And clearly that's what that's the position that Leah Dixon appears to be in, because she looks very, very good, and she knows she should have been in that front group. She
does, and she will be frustrated with herself, knowing that she should have known that she needed to be up towards the front, and she will know that herself. She's an experienced rider, and she's tried multiple times to try and get the cohesion in that chasing group, which is what we're looking at now. This is the peloton, albeit very, very reduced now. When we think 81 starters took to the start this morning in Castle Square.
It doesn't look like much left in the bunch. Isn't that much bigger than the breakaway of 12. It looks like there's only about 25, 30 riders back in this group. It really, well, there we go. Maybe not, well, 25 riders. A little bit of frustration coming. That was Victoria Smith, who's clearly, she's got good legs. And again, when you've got good legs, but you don't feel that everybody else is contributing, you can get really, really frustrated, can't you?
You certainly can, but as you said before, perhaps some of these riders, they started the day not feeling that great. It almost feels like you're riding through a treacle, or it takes a while for the legs to come round. And once you start to open up the body, open up the system, you feel yourself come round, and that's what I think we're seeing from a number of riders. As you mentioned before, Leah Dixon, especially Victoria Smith, who's been very strong in the last couple of laps. We're starting to see that eagerness as the laps tick by. Kilometres are running out, time is running out to try and do something and do some damage to this leading group of 12.
Well, we've got 3 more ascents of the Michael Gate to come. But after this ascent, they will see 2 laps to go. And then the final climb of the Michael Gate, well, that will be the final destination, because the finish line, as we all know, is at the top of this iconic climb. And there is a great shot of the vehicles just behind this leading group, but importantly, empty road behind. The gap, as we just seen a few moments ago, around 1 minute and 15 seconds. They are out of sight at the moment, and this is one of the few opportunities to just get a little bit of a rest as well after that horrible little climb there. It's not one we often talk about, but it is significant and could provide, if somebody's feeling particularly bold and also not and wants to shake out some of the riders they know who are very fast, like the likes of Alice Barnes, who we know has got a real punch, going long and putting her on the back foot and forcing it to chase, could be an opportunity. So I do think we'll see some activity on that climb, but no real splits just yet as we looked before, and it's still Cams Tifosi on the front, but the gap is going out.
At some point you have to be able to outwit some of those stronger riders within that leading group, don't you? You have to try and put them under pressure, and at some point Drops the Call, I think, will have to make a move, because when you take a look at the riders who are within that group, Anna Henderson, Alice Barnes, Danielle Shrewsbury having a tremendous ride, the rider in that faded blue jersey from Team LDN Brother UK. Drops the Call, they know that they need to try and put some of these riders under pressure to try and put the sting into the legs, trying to put some fatigue into those riders' legs as well.
We've seen on a couple of occasions, Anna Christian and Danny Christmas as well from Drops the Call went back and had a little bit of a conversation with the team car. Clearly there's a big attack on by Pfeiffer Georgie now on the right hand side. This is a big move just before the bottom of the climb. Joss Loudon trying to respond to that. She's looking very good here, not because of the, she's moved on to the smooth surface. Anna Henderson there as well. This group is now starting to rip apart. Pfeiffer Georgie is looking very impressive, laying down the power. Real good style on this climb.
But look at this. This is the damage that Pfeiffer Georgie has done to this group. Anna Henderson key to this move, as was Joss Loudon. Alice Barnes, though, just starting to go backwards from this effort, unable to respond to this move. Also, Anna Shackley as well of SD Works. But look at this, Pfeiffer Georgie even putting Anna Henderson under pressure. You start to see that gritting of the teeth as they take the left-hander around Michael Gate.
Well, this has split this group. First real serious attack, and it is a very effective one. If these 2 riders go clear, well, that could be a very potent force. But Pfeiffer Georgie romping away at the moment. She takes a little glance behind. Out of the saddle is Anna Henderson, trying to shut the gap as quickly as she can. And I think she is going to get across the gap. Just Loudon rolls through as well. Meanwhile, the bunch behind, they're only at a minute, so they're only a minute behind. And you talked about the length of time it takes to climb the Michael Gate. It is around 50 seconds to a minute of effort, although it seems like an eternity when you're on the climb itself.
And especially when you're on your limit and you've had multiple ascents of this climb and multiple rounds of this circuit. It does feel like eternity, and you start to see the rocking and rolling of the shoulders, of the hips of these riders, just trying to haul their way up this steep climb. Only 200 meters in length, but maxes out at points at 27.9%, an average gradient of 12%. So really such a difficult climb. We're seeing some reaction from behind, but at the moment, as Pfeiffer Georgie's made her move, she's gone over the top.
She's gone over the top. It would be great if we could just see what is happening over the top, because that was a significant flick. Anna Henderson, we know, is there as well. This is the chase behind, but they are a minute down. So the race is up ahead. They've got 2 laps to go, and this is the situation. These are the 3 riders that have gone clear. Real classy group. Henderson, of course, the newly minted elite time trial champion. And the woman in second place is rolling through with second in the championship. She's in great form, as you talked about earlier on, Hannah. 8th overall in the women's tour, clearly in very, very good form this late in the season, and is looking strong. This is a remarkably decent trio.
It certainly is. For Pfeiffer Georgie, racing in that under-23 women's time trial championship, when you compare her time to the elite times, she'd have been up there and placing, but Joss Loudon taking that silver medal behind Anna Henderson in that time trial. And there's the first look at that chasing group from behind. Alice Barnes on the front, trying to close that gap.
Well, Alice Barnes was looking relaxed earlier on, but she could not respond to this move. And there they are, just rounding the corner. It's only about 5 or 6 seconds gap as Henderson continues to pile on the pressure at the front. She looks so strong. So does Georgie. So does Joss Loudon as well. But the chase is coming. It does look like it's Alice Barnes. There's how many riders? 4 riders in there. Also in the mix in that very distinctive LA BTC Ljubljana kit is Sophie Wright. But this group has been torn apart. So we only have 4, 5, 6, 7 riders left at the front. A group of 3, then a group of 4.
Interestingly, no drops riders. Drops Lecole supported by Tempo riders in that chasing group. Josie Nelson is there from Team Coupe High Tech Products. Sophie Wright there from LEBTC Ljubljana. Anna Shackley of SD Works and Alice Barnes of Canyon SRAM, the defending champion. So despite being in a really strong position before, they only have the one rider, Joss Loudon, who is currently in contention. Yeah,
she looked very good there, but that says a lot, I think, about the ability of Pfeiffer Georgie. That was very dangerous indeed. As we move, this is this will be group 4 on the road. In fact, actually, this is the group that have just left the bunch because, of course, our front group of 12 riders has completely detonated. We've got 3, we've then got 4, so there are other riders in between. So this is our group of 3 out in front. Joss Loudon, Pfeiffer Georgie, and of course Anna Henderson as well. Pfeiffer Georgie rolling to the front now, and that group behind it, they've stabilised that gap. I think it's Shackley doing the chasing at the moment for SD Works on the front, and they are closing it, but they're winching themselves back into contention very slowly. This is really going to hurt. So into the last 2 laps of the Women's Elite National Road Race Championships here in iconic Lincoln. The setting for the championships over the last few days. It's the first time we've ever had the Circuit Race Championships, the Road Championships and the Time Trial Championships all together. The Road Championships have been held in Lincoln before, back in 2015 when Lizzie Deignan took the women's race. She's not on the start list today, so we will have a brand new champion. Alice Barnes, the defending road race champion, is in this chasing group behind, and it looks, Hannah, as if this little chasing group of 4 are going to get back in front.
I think it was a real surprise, wasn't it, to that group and to some of those riders. They've been finding themselves able to go up that climb just to ease off a little bit, take their own line on the Michaelgate climb, and I think as that fatigue starts to set in for a few riders, the sheer pace, that sheer explosive attack from Pfeiffer Georgie from the very bottom of the Michaelgate climb did the damage. Some riders unable to respond, and this is a huge effort being made by Anna Shackley to close that gap. And here goes the defending champion Alice Barnes on the right-hand side for Canyon SRAM.
Well, that was a big move, straight over the top. And we know how well she can time trial as well as race. That was a, consummate move over the top. And she's going to continue with this, but Henderson knows she cannot afford to give Alice Barnes too much of a gap at all. So he's on the front, determined to bring her back, and it does look as if she's going to make contact again, but that was an interesting move there by Alice Barnes, who clearly knows she needs to get clear of Henderson and of Georgie on the climb, because she was outpowered on the climb last time up.
She certainly was. So where we've seen her be really dominant on the Michaelgate climb in previous years, when it's been the Lincoln Grand Prix or even indeed the National Championships in 2015, when she was really in control. That time round, that was a real show, a display of how strong some of these other riders are within this group, and she knows that she can't leave it to that final ascent or indeed the next time round, because she knows what to expect from these riders. They've shown a card, I think, to the rest of the riders within this group of just what they've got left in the tank. And even that move there from Alice Barnes, Sophie Wright, just been slightly dejected from that group. She's got herself back in touch now, the rider with the fluorescent jersey on.
Well, that told us a lot, didn't it? That move by Barnes. She knows if she's going to successfully defend her title, she has to put distance between her and the three riders that were clearly stronger on the climb. She knows, but we've seen riders do that before. We know there's only certain ways that riders can win this race, and if you're not feeling great on the climb, you need to build a buffer before the climb, and that's exactly what we saw Barnes do. And we know that she can time trial to the finish if she gets a gap. That's why Henderson shut it down straight away. She was having none of it.
She certainly wasn't, but for Barnes, you have to play to your strengths. You can't ride someone else's race or play into the hands of someone else and take it all the way to the Michaelgate climb. You have to ride to where you think you're able to win the race, whether that be from a long way out. We've seen attacks go on this flatter section of road, haven't we? Once we turn onto Saxelby Road on that A57, that although it's the flat part of the course, that is where the race has been won in previous editions in both the men's and women's race of the Lincoln Grand Prix.
Exactly. If you want to win the Lincoln Grand Prix and you're not feeling 100% on the climb, you've got to use other parts of the course to go clear. It's as simple as that, but you then got to build a buffer, that's it. But there's a kind of brittle alliance in this group. As soon as Barnes attacked when the junction was made, that I think was the point that this group, it's uneasy here. Look, they're not relaying through like they were before. This in fact could open the door for the riders drop to get back on, although there's quite a big gap that's opened up. We'll get confirmation of the gap soon, but I would call this breakaway now kind of quite brittle. I think they'll continue to attack each other, and they'll be thinking about the finish. They'll be thinking about the last two ascents of the Michaelgate and holding a bit back now.
They'll certainly be aware of what's to come. Now they're starting to see that first injection of pace, that first the cohesion is gone, hasn't it, from this group now? Although they're working to go through, they're very mindful, they're very twitchy. You can almost start to feel that tension between the riders. They know that riders are willing to go early as we go through British Straights, Matt.
British Straights, the aptly named British Straights. Do we get copyright? Do we get credit for that
I think we should.
when the programme ends? Well, hope we do.
Be in the credits.
Indeed. Well, this 7-rider group have shed the remnants of that break. We had 12 riders on the last ascent of the Michaelgate, and that big acceleration by Pfeiffer Georgie in particular drew 3 riders clear, split the group in half, and now they've coalesced and come back together on this flatter section. We've come out of Burton Village. That's a quite technical series of lefts and rights in the wet as well. Now we're heading back towards the A57. We'll pick up that crosswind. Although saying that, they do appear to be riding, although the rider just on the back from SD Works is just easing off a little bit, Shackley. Shackley's had a great championships so far. She's only 20 years of age, but is the current under-23 time trial champion. As you said, her time would have put her up well in the mix as well. But so we've got multiple current national champions in this group trying to add to their jersey collection.
They certainly are. Shackley, such a promising talent, was part of the British Academy, Senior Academy. She won the national points race just before COVID hit, January 2020, with a standout ride there. And since signing for SD Works, has gone from strength to strength, represented Team GB at the Olympic Games, one of only 2 riders to represent GB in the Olympic road race, and she also did the time trial as well, so she was there to support Lizzie Deignan in her bid for the gold medal back in August. And for Shackley, having learnt so much from the team, of course, from being on the Senior Academy, but since going to SD Works, learning from the greats of Anna van der Breggen and Chantal van den Broek-Black.
What a team, yeah. I mean, that's really going to help her, isn't it, to be riding in such illustrious company. But she's, as you said, her own personal performances have been very, very impressive. 18th in the Olympic time trial and 9th in the individual time trial in the recent women's tour. Just shows that she's got a lot of talent. But there you go, Chasers only 35 seconds behind. So this, remember, they aren't the chasers from the bunch, they're the riders that have been left behind. And obviously we've only got a certain amount of motos to cover this whole race, which is splitting, reforming and splitting again. But the group behind would be the remnants of the initial breakaway, including the elite circuit race champion from the other day, Joe Tindley.
Yeah, part of that chasing group, Danielle Shrewsbury, as well as April Tacey, Danny Christmas, Anna Christian. We just see the drops car just coming up to have a little chat with Joss Loudon, who's in that front group, and here is that chasing group.
And they will try and bring this back, just because they've got so many riders in the front of the race. They won't want Just Loudon to be alone, although Loudon clearly is riding well because she was able to follow the pace of Pfeiffer Georgie over the top of the climb along with Henderson, but she's now outnumbered. There's 7 riders in front to 1, and they've got 3 riders behind, so they will try and get back in contact to try and support her as best they can.
They certainly will, but let's not forget, the under-23 title is still on offer. April Tacey is an under-23. She's in this chasing group, so it's important for the team that they also want to go for that title as well as the elite title overall. It's in their best interest, and it's a huge opportunity for Tacey to take that under-23 British national title.
It's just worth name checking that the riders in at the sharp end of this race who are riding in the under-23 level as well. The elite title up for grabs, of course, and incorporated into the same race, the under-23. So at the front of the race, we have Sophie Wright. She is an under-23 as well. April Tacey, who you just discussed, she's in this little chasing group at around 35 seconds. And the other under-23 rider in at the front group is, in fact, Anna Shackley of Team SD Works.
Also along with Josie Nelson and Pfeiffer Georgie, both under-23 riders. And Pfeiffer Georgie not only going for that under-23 title, Matt, she's going to go and try do the double.
Well, the way she was riding there, and she's either gone too early or she just showed us how immensely strong she is. So that there's a few riders here that are going to be very, very concerned about that. But we've seen riders do it before. Show their hand a little bit too early in the race, although she clearly wanted to shake things up, whittle this group down. That's quite normal, but she's obviously feeling confident. But our rider is Just Loudon holding something back a little bit? Is Anna Henderson holding something back? We shall soon find out.
It's very different, isn't it, once we get towards the back end of the race, and especially the final ascent of Michaelgate, when you want to lay it all on the line, there's nothing to lose. It's a very different situation than a few laps out from the finish line, when you are starting to feel the legs are stinging, the lungs are burning, that fatigue is setting in. But the final ascent, for instance, or even 1 lap to go, you know you've only got around 12 kilometres remaining. It's a very different situation than when you have 24, 25, 30 kilometres left of the race, being able to react to those moves. And Henderson, when she gets a sniff of a finish line, you don't want to take her to the finish. She's so punchy.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point. Now, I'm going to ask you a bit of a kind of direct sportive question. You've worked for teams over the years, you've sat in the team car, you've told people what to do. I'm quite interested in the Just Loudon proposition here. She's riding through in this group and her teammates are riding through behind. Do you think she should use that as an opportunity to sit on a little bit? She's now looking around a little bit. She's 18 seconds, so I would say sit on.
Yeah, certainly sit on. I mean, when she's going through, she's not doing a hard turn to add in and contribute. What she's doing is actually quite smart, because she's not starting to annoy the other group riders within that group. The fact that she's missing a turn, and then you lose all sense of cohesion and teamwork within that leading group. But at the moment, you see now it is starting to look a little bit cagey within this leading group, and Loudon constantly looking behind her there.
You could just see that was interesting. We just saw Anna Henderson miss a turn. I mean, we know how strong she is, but she just no, I'm not going to do a turn. So forcing Pfeiffer Georgie to then relay over the top, and Just Loudon is sitting on now.
She is sitting on the rider at the back of this group in that light blue jersey. She won't contribute to the pace. A little gap has opened, so Anna Henderson has closed that gap. She's looking around, and she wants these 3 teammates to get back into contention. She's in a stronger position by having them there, as opposed to not.
And again, if they do get back on again, they might get dropped on the climb. They might not. You just don't know. It's best to have 4 riders than 1, especially given the opposition that she's up against.
It works into their favour, doesn't it? If they do get back into contention and you have 1 rider attack, it means that the other 3 riders can sit back. It leaves it to the likes of Pfeiffer Georgie, Sophie Wright, Anna Henderson, Alice Barnes to close that gap. So for Drops Lecole, if they can get those strength in numbers back into that leading group, they have many options to play. And we saw from the earlier part of the race how strong Anna Christian was. As soon as she accelerated up the climb, the damage that she did, it was actually her move at the beginning of the race that forced this move to go.
Definitely. Well, this is a fascinating situation. That group are slowly, you can just see them, they are slowly but surely getting back into contention. A lot of work being done on the front by everybody in this group. In fact, there's the team car coming back up again to have another word, just to sort of urge them, give them a little bit of confidence, just tell them what the situation is. They can see them almost reach out and touch. This is the penultimate lap now Next time through and over the top of Michaelgate, they'll get the belt. Then you have 1 lap of 8 miles before the championship is decided. This has been, as we expected, a very attritional race on one of the most, iconic courses in British cycling. This is going to be a fantastic finale. This is that drag up. This is the chasing group behind Anna Christian, Danny Christmas from Drops Le Col, and also April Tacey, of course, Joe Tindley from Pro Noctis, and Daniel Shrosby from Team London in the blue in the third wheel.
You can just see at the front of that leading group, Joss Loudon was just up towards the front trying to slow things down whilst taking a look behind her to try and see where that chasing group was. So teamwork coming in all forms, all kinds, and it is looking like these two groups will merge together. Danielle Shrosbury of the team LDN Brother UK in that faded blue jersey, doing all the work at the moment on the front to try and close this gap. And tremendous ride from this club rider amongst riders who race
Big
for
teams,
UCI
yeah.
professional teams. Joe Tindley, another rider who is a domestically based club team rider.
Yep, the champion from the other day. That dominant performance around the top of the Michaelgate, of course, finishing in the Castle Square. And the group, there's an attack on the right-hand side. It looks like it's Christmas attacking on the right-hand side. This is a good move. Big acceleration just over the top of this climb. So at the moment, it Drops Le Col playing a bit of a blinder, but it's not Christmas. It's Loud.
Anna Christian,
going
over the top here. As we mentioned before, the rider who was the rider to form this initial breakaway at the start of the race. And look, that is dejected Joe Tindley from this group again.
Tindley's starting to suffer now. I mean, she's got the consolation. It's not even a consolation, it's a wonderful feat. And that's a victory she had the other day, but now that little move there by Christmas has been negated. Alice Barnes moves to the front. Joss Loudon just moves herself onto the wheel of the defending champion. Shackley there on the right-hand side in that purple kit for SD Works. April Tacey just on the right-hand side there. The furthest right for Drops Le Col. And now moving through on the left, Sophie Wright for Ali BTC Ljubljana. Even though there's a group of now, we've got 12 riders back in front. The group has come back together. Positioning now on this penultimate lap is crucial, more crucial than the previous laps, even in this front group.
It certainly is, and vital to make sure that you're going into this penultimate ascent of the Michaelgate climb in prime position. Joe Tindley, she knows that she was ejected on the previous lap. She was ejected going through that feed zone there. She knows that if she wants to try and stay within contention, that take it on from the front.
She can give herself some sliding space, as well.
Exactly, so important, and she can go into here at her own pace. At the moment, some of those riders, Joss Loudon at the moment, very happy just to sit in second wheel, not be on the front setting the pace, but for Tindley, it works out to her best benefit.
No, it certainly does. She's riding really smart, really intelligent. As we just look at the back, the water being ridden off, wiped off the top of the screen, but it is Joss Loudon on the front now. And on her wheel is Anna Henderson. Ooh, she just made contact, just bounced off the centre there. She really lost a lot of momentum there, didn't she?
And this is the dangerous part, that you gamble to ride in the gutter. That if you clip your crank, your pedal on the pavement, it's such a fine line, a fine balance, isn't it? And Henderson been doing it lap after lap. The rider in the yellow and black jersey for Jumbo-Visma.
She's looking absolutely rock steady. And this is the moment again where we just saw, did she clip her pedal? Let's have a little look. I think she did. Yep, she clipped her pedal. Exactly what she clipped, her right pedal on the curb. And when you do that, we've all done it riding up the Michaelgate. I've done it on a few occasions. It can really put a real shock into you, can't it? And you kind of back off the pedal. You lose so much momentum. You've got to keep the power down all the way up this climb, otherwise you will lose length. But Loudon's still in the front. This is interesting. Hadn't split quite as much. Piper Georgia, interestingly, accelerated before, but has backed off a little bit. Barnes in the mix there in fourth position. Shackley also there as well. So this is a very interesting group. Fighting to get back onto the wheels there is Sophie Wright as well. So they get the belt. 1 lap to go in the Women's Elite National Road Race Championships. In around 20 minutes' time, the champion will be decided, and the defending champion, Alice Barnes, after being dropped on the previous lap on the Michaelgate, is back in contention as a couple of other riders are dropped from this group heading into the final lap. So Joe Tindley there, the local hero, from her performances the other night. They've not continued the pace over the top. This is getting very, very cagey, Hannah.
A very different dynamic to the previous lap here, where before we had an aggressive attacking race up the Michael Gate. Pfeiffer Georgie being followed by Anna Henderson and Joss Loudon. This time, the tension is starting to rise, it's starting to build, they're starting to look at each other and watch each other. No one wanting to take it up at the front, and no rider has a teammate in that front group either. So all three riders from drops have been distanced again at the moment. So Joss Loudon has been left isolated. She has one rider trying to bridge across. Looks like Tacey being followed by Danielle Shrodsbury of the Team LDM Brother UK.
Well, this is really, really interesting. Everybody's just rolling through. Shackley just rolled through very, very gently there, just keeping that pace reasonably high. Josie Nelson takes her turn on the front. Pfeiffer Georgie now rolls through. Alice Barnes looked a lot more composed that time up, but nobody really put in the same sort of acceleration. Clearly, riders now are holding things back for the final lap, and because they've slowed a little bit, we could see these three riders get back in contention. Anna Christian and Danny Christmas are the two riders from Drops Le Col, and the elite circuit race champion Joe Tindley is the rider on the front in the red.
They're certainly not going to give up without a fight, are they? And especially for Joe, she's got herself into this position, into a race-winning move. She's not going to give up without a fight, and despite being distanced several times over the last lap and a half, she keeps clawing her way back on.
The thing is, if they continue to ride in this very tactical way, that everybody's holding a little bit back, because we've seen several attacks. They're going to want to hold something back, so they've got something in the tank to respond to those moves. But this situation here could suit one of the riders who's actually been dropped before to go. Everybody else sits back, and they could open up a gap. So this, although we clearly know who the strongest climbers are, at the moment there's enough road for there to be a completely different outcome from just being the strongest on the climb, if somebody's smart and they want to go for it.
And taking that opportunity and taking that risk in order to go on and win the race, they're willing to risk to lose if they want to put themselves into that winning position.
Well, this is the Cams to face the team, and the remnants of the peloton clambering their way up this awful climb. It's beautiful, but it is really, really challenging. You can see the riders now, as they get deeper into this race, actually starting to slow down these laps for some of these riders as fatigue really starts to seep into the muscles. Will just get slower and slower and slower. But the front group look far more sprightly. But these riders will continue through. But meanwhile, probably a mile and a half up the road is our front group, being led at the moment by Anna Henderson. Over the last 3 laps, this group has split in half, come back together, split again, and heading into our final lap, it has come back together again, and there's a big attack on the left-hand side. Drops Le Col doing what we thought, and they fired somebody up the road.
Anna Christian here, the rider from the Isle of Man, who's gone up the road. She's taken this opportunity. She sensed that lull in this leading group, who has opened up this gap. And look at this, Matt. No reaction from behind. Pfeiffer Georgie is looking around. No real reaction here at the moment. Anna Christian pursuing this move, and she did look strong earlier on. But she was the rider who forced this leading group to go, and now the reaction comes from the Jumbo-Visma rider in the yellow and black, Anna Henderson, the elite time trial champion, who has gone on the move. She knows that she can't leave this one too late. She knows the danger of Anna Christian and how strong she is.
Well, that's exactly what we were talking about. Dropped on the other laps, but taking the opportunity, given their numerical superiority, that is a strong, just an intelligent move. This race, as we talked about before, offers up opportunities for different sorts of riders. It really, really does. And
it's not always won just on the climb. It can be won on these flatter sections, this top road here, and especially as we spoke about before, on that country lane before we make the left turn onto Saxelby Road. And look at this. All the riders starting to look around at each other.
This is interesting.
It is, and this is real tension now. Pfeiffer Georgie can start to see the nerves build in these riders, because they know at the moment the race is going away from them.
It certainly is, and they've still, Drops Le Col, powered by Temper, have still got 3 riders there to shut down each of these moves, and they've got the strength on these flatter roads. We know they were struggling a little bit on the climbs, although Joss Loudon looked remarkably strong. Now it's interesting. who they've actually forced to do the riding on the front now. It's Daniela Shrosby, who's been willing to do a lot of the riding here today, and she is riding in illustrious company. But meanwhile, Anna Christian, 26 years of age, as you said, from the Isle of Man, is riding away, but she's only got a slender lead. And look who's trying to accelerate across too. It's this circuit race champion in the form of Joe Tindley, also wanting a piece of the action here.
For these riders, Danielle Shrosbury, Joe Tindley, this is a huge opportunity to put yourself into a race-winning move, and they can sense that danger. Neither of these riders have any teammates in this group, and at the moment, still no real reaction at the back. A little acceleration there from Anna Shackley. Comes to nothing though, because Joss Loudon, she has a teammate up the road for Drops Le Col in that light blue jersey. She's not going to do any of the chasing.
Well, this is a fascinating race. Joe Tindley is bringing across Pfeiffer Georgie of Team DSM, so this is going to be a very, very strong group in front. We know who the strongest climber is, because a couple of laps ago it was Pfeiffer Georgie who forced that split of 3 riders. As we look back, it's only a slender lead as we head back up to Burton Village for the very last time before that treacherous technical descent. This is the left-hand corner that I'm talking about. They lose a lot of height very, very quickly indeed. Apologies for the little bit of picture breakup as we head to the furthest point of this circuit, but look at the speed they're carrying down this descent. And as we saw before, Tindley descends fearless. She can corner like she's on rails.
She is fearless at descending. She's so experienced. She's willing to take that risk, and she has tremendous bike handling skills as well. So she's not afraid of this descent. She'll know this descent very well, living closely. She will come out here, train, be able to take the right line, to be able to take it as fast as possible through that dangerous or the fast descent through the S-bends.
Well, we saw her bike handling skills, well, just a physical prowess the other night on Friday for that quite magnificent win in the Circuit Race Championships. And you don't win Circuit Race Championships just on strength alone. You've got to be a very, very skillful rider, and she's certainly displaying it here. We'll get back to pictures as soon as we can, as we just look at the finishing square here in the centre of Lincoln, in the shadow of the cathedral, and just by the castle as well. But Tindley is still continuing with this effort. So she's looking really, really good. Looks like they've dropped Christian.
Yeah, Christian, not the most confident of descenders, and especially in these conditions. Christian is on the front by the looks of things at the moment of this group. So now, wow. Drops Le Col have gone from a race-winning position to really on the back foot with all 4 riders in that chasing group. That
was interesting. We've seen Anna Henderson now accelerating away. She knows this is a very, very strong group in front, but Henderson, again, this is interesting. You've got 4 riders from Drops Le Col. Really, they should be looking for Drops Le Col to get everybody to work now for Joss Loudon and try and bring this gap back.
All 3 riders sitting towards the back of this group.
Well,
Loudon, they are suffering. You see from their body language. I mean, that was a huge effort there from Anna Christian, who now you see the heads dropping, the shoulders rocking and rolling as well, as Tindley and Georgie start to work together. Tindley, who was really on the back foot, you started to see her struggle, see the fatigue set in, has found a second wave of energy and strength.
It's funny, on a course like this, there's bits of the course that you're going to feel really strong on, and the Michael Gate isn't not. Some people just don't like that climb. You can be in great form, but you just can't quite get the rhythm. So you use other parts of the course to play to your strengths, and that's exactly what Tindley has done. She's got nothing to lose. She's the national circuit race champion, although now this gap has been starting to come down. It is Henderson really putting the others to the sword, making everybody in this group start to struggle.
We're using an awful lot of energy, but if she wants to try and take this elite road race title, she needs to bring these 2 riders back. She saw the strength of Pfeiffer Georgie. She knows what Joe Tindley is capable of, seeing her ride from the other day. And at the moment, Tindley doing all of the work at the moment. Pfeiffer Georgie just sitting on, leaving Tindley, the local rider, to do all of the work. And again, Shrosbury now for Team LDN, Brother UK, in that faded blue jersey, doing the work at the front. And Alice Barnes sitting hovering. She's just very cautiously.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. You clearly have been watching Alice. She's hardly done any. She's left everybody else to do the chasing. There's a kind of, when that move went, you could sense that riders were starting to panic, and one rider that kept a very, very cool head is the defending champion. I thought she was going to strike. I think, given the way the race has progressed so far, I have a feeling she knows she has to get away clear, because I think especially Pfeiffer Georgia looks to have the most punch, and Anna Henderson also looks to be very, very dangerous. And look at this, they've knocked the pace right off as we head back towards the main road and the A57, and we begin our journey back to the city centre.
Yeah, roughly half a lap to go now of this National Championships in Lincoln. They get to this roundabout, make that left turn onto the A57 down Saxelby Road, and we'll go from this almost single track road onto a wide main road. Provides an opportunity for a rider to make an attack, to try and go clear, go on the other side of the road and take everyone by surprise.
So we had 12 riders, we then had 3, we then had 5, and now we're back to 12 again. It is absolutely fascinating. What a race this has been. It's certainly had it all. Been held in some pretty atrocious, technically difficult conditions, but we're heading into the last few miles now. This is the final lap, well into the final lap in fact. We've only got about 4.5 miles to go of this Elite Championships, and there's another attack on the right hand side.
Again, it's Anna Christian of Drops Lecole who's wanting to make a move, but immediately is tracked down by Anna Henderson of Jumbo Visma in that yellow jersey. And again, Pfeiffer Georgie of Team DSM in that black jersey is all over this move. They know how strong Christian is.
Yep, they don't want to let Christian go clear. Anna Henderson was quick to that one as well. Also was Josie Nelson from Team Co-op in that. She's the only rider from that team in this break, and there's a lot of individual riders, should I say. In another attack, it looks like it's Tacey now on the left-hand side who moves. This is a big move by the youngster. Tacey is really explosive, and she'd opened up a bit of a gap.
And look at that, you know, Henderson, she wanted to try and react. She saw that she can't keep making every single move. She can't be the rider to do all the work to bring back these riders. And now it's Alice Barnes, the defending champion of Canyon SRAM, who comes to the front. The first real time that we've seen her in the last lap make such an effort.
Well, she's got to do something at some point, hasn't she? She'll probably be urged on by the others. And also, everybody else has done some chasing and they're starting to feel fatigued, so she's got to take a little bit of responsibility for this as we just look at that moment again in slow motion, that little look under the elbow to see the advantage that she's gained. And there, straight away was Barnes accelerating, and Tacey has been brought back. Wow, this is a thriller, isn't it? Still so difficult to call, and still, because we've got a couple of miles to the foot of the microgate, still opportunities for those with not great legs on the climb to try and go clear on the flat. So, and again, another attack by Christian. She said, well, that stopped pretty much straight away. And this time it was Pfeiffer Georgia who brought her back.
She's shown her hand so many times that she's nullified, but again, attacking from the front there. Pfeiffer Georgie was cute to that move, but Christian, she's going to pursue this all the way until the finish. She knows that she doesn't have that punchy, explosive kick to have what it needs to win on the Michaelgate, to go from that part of the climb. She knows there is more punchier riders, the likes of Anna Henderson, Alice Barnes, Pfeiffer Georgie. She wants and she needs to go early.
She certainly does. Well, look at this. It's like really staccato, stop-start racing. There's no cohesion at all, and that's not surprising because they're all wary of each other. There's a real mix of experience in this group, a mix of physiological ability and preferences. Some riders have got a real sprint, others haven't. And as a result, or the net result, is the pace drops right off, and this has become a real tactical affair. The time trial champion, the newly minted time trial champion, Anna Henderson, takes a sip from her bottle as we slowly but surely get nearer the finish line here in Lincoln. What a race it has been so far, but who is going to take the title? Christian, it's like we're in a match sprint on the track here. They've knocked it down to about 15 miles an hour here. I don't think there's any chance for anybody else to get back in the mix. The gap is a big one, probably 2, 3, even 4 minutes back to the bunch behind, but nobody else so far is making a move.
Yeah, the winner is going to come from this group with only a few kilometres to go until we reach the finish line. But as you say, all 12 riders taking a look around at each other.
Wow, this is a super tack. I don't think I've seen such a tactical race. This is very, very intriguing. Best place to be is at the back, watching, waiting. The spread across the road here. The last rider there, that is Danny Christmas. Just out, she's got everybody in view.
Having a nice overview of what's happening with the group being so small, and especially on this part of the circuit, you can afford to be at the back, having that overview. And again, it is the Drops Lecole team. April Tacey goes again, the second big attack from this young rider who is eligible for the under-23 title as well.
Well, that was a big move by Tacey. I thought Barnes was going to follow her. She kind of got out of the saddle, made a few moves and then held back, but Tacey goes clear, drops Lecole. Have the numerical advantage, but Tacey was dropped on the climb. This is the second significant attack, and she's opened up a big gap here. This is an amazing ride up long Leys Road. The road starts to drag. The pace behind, well, they're almost at walking pace here. Tacey is out of sight. What a move.
Incredible move here from Tacey, and at the moment, as you said, she's out of sight, out of mind, only just coming into vision now for those 11 chasing riders, and still no reaction from behind. How much have they got left? They need to start to worry at the danger of this rider, April Tacey. She's such a young, promising rider here. Anna Henderson, the elite time trial champion, sitting towards the back. There is our defending champion, Alice Barnes, and still no reaction.
This is complete brinkmanship now. It's Anna Henderson. You see the way she kind of looked round and just checked what the gap is, making a little bit of a calculation. She knows she cannot give her too much leeway. So Henderson now attacks, and she's got with her for company Danny Christmas. Drops Lecole, doing a superb ride here. They're marking every single move, but they've still got riders spare to pump them up the road. And young April Tacey, the 22-year-old, is absolutely flying. She was 4th in the under-23 individual time trial championships. We know her prowess on the road and in the virtual world as well. Took a couple of stages of the Women's Tour de France on Zwift. She is very strong, and she's got a big lead here.
And she's going to take this gap with everything she's got. It's only a few kilometers to go until the finish. She has to give everything that she's got left. This is the second big attack. The first one didn't work out. She was brought back, but now this time that gap has started to open up, and the reaction coming from behind. Pfeiffer Georgie putting in a huge acceleration to try and bridge across to this move.
Oh, this is a big move. Shackleton now goes to the front. Shackley, should I say, from Team SD Works to try and bring this back. Couple of riders really starting to suffer. Danny Christmas is just dropped, but it's being towed back on by Joe Tindley. Meanwhile, out in front, 9 seconds is the advantage for April Tacey, 21 years of old, for drops Lecole. But we know how much, if you hit the climb spent, you can lose 15, 20, 25 seconds in only 250 metres. That's how brutal the Michael Gate is. She's looking good, but it's not over yet. There's still an opportunity from behind.
And especially if some of these riders from behind still have something left in the legs to make that injection of pace. And let's not forget the fast descent as well. We know that Anna Henderson is a tremendous descender, so she can take back a few seconds. She's not afraid of that fast technical descent in the run into the Michael Gate climb. But again, the impetus, the chase has gone.
Yeah, it really has, and Tacey's looking strong. She's rolling a huge gear now. A big attack on the left-hand side by Anna Shackley there. Shackley goes on this little rise. I think Tacey has got a lead of approaching maybe 12, 13 seconds as they come just to the top of this climb. And now we drop down through Yarborough Road, and they can see her. And this is for 14 seconds for April Tacey, 21 years of age. This would be by far the biggest victory of her career. But between her and victory in the Elite Women's Road Race Championships of Great Britain is the notoriously difficult climb of the Michael Gate. Still, in the space of 1.5 kilometres, there's a lot of racing on the table.
There certainly is, and it's what has Tacey got left in the legs. Has she judged her effort? Has she paced this well? Has she got enough time going into the lower slopes of the Michael Gate? Only 200 metres of climbing, roughly around 12.5% average gradient, that climb, and then over the top as well. But at the moment, she continues to eke out and gain more time.
She's looking very good. She takes a look behind. She's still got around 14 seconds, and we're well inside the last kilometre here. April Tacey is in the lead. We need to get back in front to see her approach to the Michael Gate. This is Joe Tindley just getting back. She's been fighting gamely for the whole race. She is the circuit race champion, but today's race is the Women's Elite Road Race title, the iconic bands of British champion, and Tacey is on the lower slopes of the Michael Gate. The cobbles beckon, as does the pain. Out of the saddle is Tacey. She goes for the smooth line. She's been urged on by this crowd here. This is some ride by the team of Drops Lacole. Can she hold on? What have the riders got behind?
They had 4 riders in this leading group. The gap was opened up by Anna Christian initially to force this gap, and here is the defending champion Alice Barnes of Canyon SRAM with number 1 on her back, who has been ejected from the back of this group. The chase coming now from Josie Nelson, the young rider from Team Coop High Tech Products. She's in the gutter there, just a slight clip of the pedal.
This is Nelson. She's Josie Nelson is in front now. No, it's not. It's Pfeiffer Georgie emerges from the gloom. Pfeiffer Georgie powering up the Michael Gate, but chasing closely behind is Nelson. So Georgie has a short lead coming into the final few hundred metres. What an absolutely scintillating finale this is. Only a little bit of cobbles left. Back onto the tarmac, then back onto the cobbles. We need to see the front of the race now. Coming round the final corner. Is it going to be Pfeiffer Georgie? Pfeiffer Georgie has got this one. She rounds the corner. Pfeiffer Georgie is the elite national road race champion. Pfeiffer Georgie takes the win. Absolutely scintillating performance by the rider from Team DSM. She left it very late, but timed it to perfection. What a ride, she cannot believe it. Well, brave ride by April Tacey to set this race alight. But in the end, she did what she did again with 3 laps to go. And that big surge on the fearsome slopes of the Michael Gate has meant that Pfeiffer Georgie is our new national road race champion.
Incredible ride there from Pfeiffer Georgie. She showed her hand and what she was capable of with the 2 laps to go on the Michael Gate. She was the rider who forced that move. Pfeiffer Georgie took her first professional win only just over a month ago. The 21-year-old now is the elite national road race champion, and along with it, taking the under-23 title as well.
Double bubble. Well, Pfeiffer Georgie, 21 years of age, from Berkeley. She's still got a couple more years on a contract with Team DSM, but next year she's going to be riding in the iconic stripes as British road race champion. What a sensational winner. Look, your disbelief is writ large upon her young face. What a ride. She's still in a complete state of shock.
I was just going to say, the shock on her face there. I think, you know, disbelief, can't believe what she's just achieved, and tremendous stuff. It was so touch and go, wasn't it? The effort from April Tacey, incredible. It was looking promising. She went into the bottom of that climb with a 14-second advantage, but Tacey, Pfeiffer Georgie, starting her effort from the very lowest slopes of the Michael Gate to bridge and close that gap. And once she got a control of that, there was no going back.
Not at all. It was an amazing performance by her. It really, really was. We'll get confirmation of, I think it was Henderson, no, in 3rd, actually. I think we'll get confirmation of who crossed the line in 2nd place. But I think it was Nelson. There we go. That's the moment where she crossed the line, shaking her head in disbelief, well clear of her opposition. What an absolutely immense ride that was. And that is going to live long in her memory. And looking just coming round the corner there in 2nd place, I think that was indeed Josie Nelson. So silver medal for her in the elite and the under-23. So the first 2 riders home today, both under-23, giving us a real insight into the young talent that we have on the British domestic scene. Whew, I'm exhausted. Well, maybe not quite as exhausted as the women out there today, but what a great race. There's entertainment right to the very last.
It certainly was, and here is Leah Dixon. She put up such a valiant effort, didn't she, to go in pursuit of that leading group of 12. She tried and tried and tried again, and she comes across the line, still in pursuit of that leading group. Real valiant efforts. But what a race. It really came down to the wire. You didn't know where the win was going to come from, and for Drops Lacole, they put everything on the line, didn't they, to try and go for the victory with Anna Christian, then Tacey, Christian multiple times again.
I think when you look at, although they had the numerical superiority, I think they still played with, they did a really good job. They nearly pulled off a big coup. It wasn't to be, but we know how difficult the climb is. There's that moment again where Pfeiffer Georgie crossed the line in here in the shadow of Lincoln Cathedral. She's won the Lincoln Grand Prix and the British Road Race Championships at the same time. Not a bad couple of races to have. In fact, Henderson was 4th, in fact. I think that might have been Joss Loudon finishing there in the bronze medal position. So a good day, I think, for Drops Lecole. They certainly used their strength in numbers very, very well. It was a really good example of superb teamwork. So I think both Tom and Bob Varney, the owners and DSs of that squad, should be pretty happy with it, the way the team performed on the roads today.
Yeah, they certainly did, Matt. They played to their advantages, didn't they? And they wanted to go early. They knew that if they wanted to try and win the national title, they had to go from a long way out, and that's what they did multiple times. Playing to the team's strength, to the riders' strength as well, and almost pulled it off. Tacey, such a young rider, such a promising future as well. For here is Anna Henderson, who took 4th place. Shackley from SD Works taking 5th. What a standout ride from Josie Nelson, though, of Team Coupe High-Tech Products. At the start of this year, didn't have a professional contract, was racing for a Belgian club team, now racing for a UCI Continental team, and now with that silver medal.
That's a brilliant, brilliant ride. And she wasn't far off as well. They were kind of riding on both sides of the road. And it's difficult to tell because the gap kind of foreshortened with the camera angle, so they were almost neck and neck. And of course it was Pfeiffer Georgie who took maybe 3 lengths into that final corner, held it all the way to the line. In fact, there was daylight in the end. She won it convincingly, as you see the rest of our brave riders battling it up for the final time. Their national championships coming to a close after a wonderful few days. Lincoln and the surrounding areas have put on a great show with our time trial championships on Thursday, circuit race championships on Friday, and the road race today. So 4 jerseys will be given out today, and very shortly there'll be 2 under 23 women's championships, and of course the elite, both won by Pfeiffer Georgie, which is an increasing norm in world cycling across both men and women. There's an emergence, isn't there, of youth. It really is. It's really, really interesting.
It certainly is. We, the talent coming through the British system and coming through, some taking themselves like Josie Nelson away to Belgium to race, to get as much experience under her belt and showing what she's capable of. It's so wonderful to see, and still such a young rider as well, to be able to achieve what she's achieved so far. Multiple top 10 finishes in the women's tour, now a 2nd place in the national elite championships and the under 23 championships. The future really is bright across the board. When you see, of the group of 12, 6 of those riders were under 23 in that group.
Yep, I couldn't agree more, Hannah. Wonderful promise that those riders have shown, and they put on bike racing is also, that's just wonderfully entertaining race. We know how attritional. There was a selection made early on, but from that group, it was always very, very difficult to call. Who would have thought that coming into the last 300 metres of the national championships would have seen April Tacey out on her own? But this climb, it takes no prisoners at all, and if you haven't got it in the legs, especially if you've been away, it's very, very difficult. But Pfeiffer Georgie, well, she had the power in the end. We saw that with 3 laps to go. Then she backed off a little bit, didn't she? Probably wary of saving something, maybe testing her legs. Did enough to split the group, and for me, did look like the strongest. And ultimately, she rode a shrewd race as well, didn't she? She did a fair bit of chasing, but not too much. Just did enough to make sure that she had enough in reserve to do what she did at the very end.
Yeah, I was going to say that through that section where we've seen the feed zone, she did do a huge attack to try and close that gap to Tacey. It amounted to nothing. She sat back, and it was a little bit of a gamble to wait until the climb to bring back Tacey, and she was confident in herself. She was confident that she was able to have that explosive power, that 1 minute of effort needed on the Michaelgate climb to try and close that gap, and to close a 14-second gap from the bottom of the climb and get to the top, and Tacey not even in the top 5.
Yeah, she would have lost. We said that, didn't we, just before? We said, if you've got good legs, you can hold on, but you can lose as much as half a minute in 300-400 metres because the climb is so steep, and in the end. But that's not to take anything away from the performance of April Tacey. Right, to continue to finish. The photographers just getting in place for the protocol and the ceremony, all-important ceremony on the line. checkered flag still there. Those riders are going to be finishing for a good few minutes, I'd imagine. Although there is a big temptation, if you're distanced in this sort of weather on a circuit, to actually get an early bath, isn't there, an early shower? So maybe there's not that many riders out on the circuit in these very dismal conditions. But despite these dismal conditions, we've had a spectacularly bright race to look back on. And in a few minutes' time, the rewards will be doled out in the form of that wonderful red, white and blue jersey that Pfeiffer Georgi will now wear for the next 12 months. It's always interesting to see how teams actually play with the jersey design as well. So Team DSM, a very dark kit. Next year for Pfeiffer Georgi, it'll be nice and white.
The question is, will she go white shorts or black shorts?
I reckon she'll have black shorts. I hope she does. I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to coloured shorts. We'll have that conversation a bit later with a friend of mine and ours, Adam Blythe, who's going to be commentating on the men's race. He's a man that's been national champion and ridden in white shorts. He's saying he's obviously here already, warming up on the turbo for the race later on. He's a white shorts through and through.
He is. When he was national champion, went for the white shorts.
He pulled it off, though.
He did pull it off, I must admit.
Did. He did manage to pull it off, that lad, to be fair. Not many could, Hannah. Not many could. So, now a look at the top of the Michaelgate. That little bit of tarmac, just sewing together those two sections of cobbles on the Castle Hill Club. I do like the fact that there's a sign at the bottom of the Michaelgate that just says Steep Hill. It's just stating the plainly obvious, isn't it?
A road name, Steep Hill, is wonderful, isn't it? It is wonderful. And on this this finish line, I think I'm right in saying that Joe Tinley worked in one of these pubs here, so made the race-winning move. Brilliant. On the in the road race, took the Elite Circuit national title on Friday evening at the pub where she used to pull pints in her local town.
What a wonderful story. That's what cycling's full of these wonderful stories, isn't it?
You can have that one for free.
Thank you very much indeed. Here we go. The rather damp podium will soon be lit up with the smiles of our three race medalists. Pfeiffer Georgi, the winner of the Elite Women's Road Race Championship for 2021. After a 2-year hiatus, no championships, as everybody will know, due to the pandemic. But great to have the racing back. And what a location and what a show Lincoln and its people have put on for us. And another nod as well to the race organisers and to Rafa and the Lincoln Grand Prix for pulling this event off. It's been great so far.
So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to kick off with the presentation for the Ian Emerson Trophy for the winner of the points competition.
Well, there's a points competition first, the Ian Emerson Trophy. He was the organiser previously of the Lincoln Grand Prix, and indeed the chairman of British Cycling for many years.
Yeah, for many decades, Emerson was the organiser of the Lincoln Grand Prix since 1956. So this is the prize. The Ian Emerson Michaelgate Trophy, so the most points gained every time across the line. At the top of Michaelgate, they were given to the first three riders across the line, points 3, 2 and 1.
It's like a Queen of the Mountains or a Queen of the Cobble Climbs award. There we go. Well, there is Ian Emerson. Looking well, isn't he, Ian?
Looking great. Great to see him.
Pfeiffer Georgi. Nearly had a crash on the podium there.
And the winner of the Ian Emerson Trophy, Anna Henderson.
Anna Henderson, fourth in the race itself, but the rider who amassed the most points atop the climb. Born and raised in Hemel Hempstead, Anna Henderson is the queen of the Michaelgate, basically, awarded by Ian Emerson just there on the right-hand side. Good to see the smiles there. It must be tough as well for Alice Barnes. A couple of years in that jersey, but she completely capitulated in the end. And that happens. Riders look good, but then the final ascent can put pay to so many riders' hopes.
She did everything she possibly could, didn't she, to try and defend her jersey. And I think as a rider, as a team, as a sports director, you can't ask more than that, can you? If you've tried and you've done everything you possibly can to take the victory.
They're using me live, do they know?
So the under 23 category for those who are riders.
Doing the under 23 awards first. So there's going to be multiple visits to the podium for several riders here.
Class a race today, good to see so many of our younger riders up and racing up for the overall as well. So ladies and gentlemen, the medal ceremony of the 2021 HSBC UK under 23 women's national
So the under 23 podium.
welcome to the stage. Right, medals and the jersey. In third place, winner of the bronze medal, Anna Shackley of Team SD Works.
Anna Shackley of SD Works. Great ride by Shackley. So third place in the under 23 Roaders to add to her national title in the time trial. So in second place we have Josie Nelson. 2 silver medals for Josie. She looks absolutely frozen.
She does.
Somebody get her a top and a hat. And there we go. A gentle little wave there from Pfeiffer Georgie, because she is the under 23 national road race champion of Great Britain. Medals all round. And they're the future. They are the stars of the future, but the stars of today, because the first 2 riders are also going to be getting the elite jerseys and medals as well.
It's a real promise, isn't it? Seeing this, the wealth of talent coming through, and all racing on the world stage as well. All 3 of these riders, and you see how they've come on. How nice is that? Bronze medalist Anna Shackley of SD Works presenting our newly crowned under 23 national road race champion Pfeiffer Georgie of Team DSM with that gold medal.
Big smiles all round. Brilliant stuff. Shackley, should I say, Nelson and Georgie. It's been a tough day. And it's time for a little bit of bubbly. This is a bit of a practice run for Pfeiffer Georgie and Josie Nelson ahead of the next set of awards. And is there a kind of an order? Does the winner have to be the first one to pop the cork? Let's have a look who's going to win the Poppage Award. Oh, and indeed, it's Nelson who just takes that one. But no,
very close fight.
Indeed, a great moment on the podium here. And that was your under 23 women's podium. Great racing by all 3 of these riders. You'll be seeing a lot more of these riders over the next few years, that is for sure. So the under 23 podium is done and dusted. Next up, in very short order, I would imagine, will be the Elite Trophy. And then we've got 3 fresh bottles of bubbly. And a slightly different podium with the addition of Joss Loudon.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go.
So in only about 35 minutes of the men's road race, in fact, that would so please stay with us for that. There is the iconic Lincoln Cobble, awarded to the winner of the Lincoln Grand Prix, and of course on this occasion, Lincoln Grand Prix incorporating the British Road Race Championships. It really is a lovely, lovely trophy, isn't it?
Really special, isn't it? It's just such prestige. Iconic race here, the Lincoln Grand Prix, incorporating the national championships, and it's the one that everyone wants to win it. Everyone wants to have that in their trophy cabinet on the mantelpiece. Along with the Cobble Trophy, the winner will also take home the Roy Allen Hart Memorial Shield as well. So lots of silverware to go into Pfeiffer Georgie's trophy cabinet.
Yep, it'll be a burgeoning. This is, as I said, had a great win earlier this year. It's a big pro win. She obviously rode Paris-Roubaix as well, but it was La Charlize Féminine that she won back in September. Also won the youth competition in the CMAC Ladies Tour,
yeah,
which was overall in the women's tour as well.
3, 4, 5.
And she prevailed today in quite dominant fashion ultimately as well. She was clearly the strongest by a considerable margin on the Michael Gate, but it would have been pretty nervous coming in with that. With Tacey having 15 seconds with 500 metres to go, it would have been an exceptionally nervous run into the line, wouldn't it?
And it was an effort that it was all out. She had to leave everything on the line if she wanted to take that victory, and that's what Pfeiffer Georgie did.
Indeed. Here we go. Joss Loudon, third place, the bronze medal in the Elite Women's Road Race Championship. She looks pretty pleased with that.
Silver medal, Josie Nelson of Team Corp High-Tech Products.
Josie Nelson in second place to add to her silver medal in the under-23. Bless her, she looks quite overawed, doesn't she? I think she's very cold as well. We just need to get this bit of protocol done and dusted, but it's an important one.
National Road Race Champion, Pfeiffer Georgie.
Pfeiffer Georgie is the British Elite National Road Race Champion at the tender age of 21. And this is the jersey that she will wear. Silver medalist Josie Nelson. Second medal of the day for her, Joss Loudon. We're pretty happy with that, and she was very sporting at the end as well, Loudon. She was close to tears congratulating Pfeiffer Georgie, because I think they all know that the strongest woman won on the day. And
all these women know each other from the international stage as well, having racing with each other week in, week out on the continent, and everyone very happy, thrilled for the victory of Pfeiffer Georgie.
There we go. Pfeiffer Georgie is your National Elite Women's Road Race Champion here in Lincoln. And in the process, she's also added the Lincoln Grand Prix to her Palmares as well. Another time for a bit of bubbly. Always a tense moment. Joss Loudon the first, I think, to pop the cork. Yep. Loudon first, second place there for Georgie, third place to Josie Nelson.
Georgie hitting the target on the splashing the camera with the champagne.
Brilliant stuff.
For the rapper Lincoln Grand Prix, but also because we're going to make Pfeiffer's life difficult, we've got a fantastic
and there
trophy.
is that iconic cobbled trophy.
Presented here by Andrew Jones. So
the Rafa Lincoln Grand Prix trophy there. And Rafa has supported this race for the last few years, in fact, haven't they? Because it nearly shut up shop, didn't it? And Rafa stepped in. And you have to acknowledge the importance of sponsors like that to keep this important race going.
You certainly do. They came to support the race. Initially would have been 2020. Of course, that edition was postponed, and Rafa continuing their support. There is the Roy Allen Hart Memorial Trophy as well, presented to Pfeiffer Georgie.
So yeah, the Lincoln Trophy on the right, and that's the National Road Race Trophy on the left-hand side. Generally, if you win the National Road Race, you get some sort of cut glass, and there we go. So again, very sporting there by Joss Loudon to help Pfeiffer Georgie with that trophy.
So we're going to be sitting
I might get a word with our medalists and hopefully our winner. I'll just say, so we shall pause a moment, and hopefully we can have a little bit of a conversation with our medalists.
This will be live, by the way, so we'll be very quick. I know you're cold.
I'm going to bring you back, sorry, Josh.
Yeah, on your cue.
Can you hear him for a cue?
So first up, we have Joss Loudon, the bronze medalist today.
Joss, good race, not quite the result you wanted, but you've got to be quite satisfied with your time here in Lincoln.
Yes, I am actually, and to be honest, I really enjoyed the race today. The conditions obviously were pretty tough, so to go out and have sort of 12 of us away was pretty perfect. And good friends with basically all the girls there, so I felt like I was on a nice day out with my mates.
Good friends, really. So it looked like quite a hard ride from what we were looking at, especially going at the Michael Gate, of course, and that really made the difference very early on.
Yeah, I think probably I would have needed about another 5 or 6 kind of reps up Michael Gate to be able to kind of maybe have an edge at the very last climb, or maybe just a bit longer. But I'm quite happy with third. I think we did well as a team today. Like, we played with the numbers that we had, and we did the best that we could. So I'm super happy for Pfeiffer and for Josie as well. I think they rode phenomenally well, super strong.
And they're youngsters, aren't they? They're the future right there, man.
They're
I
real
hate to
strong.
say it.
Our under-23s, like British riders coming through, are really quite talented. So actually, to be up on the podium with them and be like, almost double their age, I'm quite happy happy about that.
Joss, thanks so much indeed. Josie, step over for us if you wouldn't mind. Congratulations on your silver medal. Being a cyclocrosser, you must love these kind of conditions.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I was kind of excited when it was raining. A bit cold, but yeah.
And look, there was some real talent in that group right at the end. All eyes on Anna, of course. She's had a fantastic few days too, but you managed to sneak in there for second. Pleased with that?
Yeah, I think I was a bit of an underdog with being with all the other good riders. I haven't done that much road previously, but I've done quite a lot this year, so I've got into it.
And you've got some cycling sisters, of course, so it runs in the family. So, I mean, this is bragging rights for you, is it, over your sisters?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay. Josie, congratulations. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Fifer, if you wouldn't mind stepping over, double champion, under 23 and elite women's champion. Massive congratulations. And I watched you hit the Michael Gate first, and you were right up there as well with Anna Henderson, and you were in the at the front the whole day long. Was that the way to win it, do you think?
Yeah, I did this race once before, and I think the key is positioning into this climb because it's so narrow and things can go at any lap, and we saw that today. On the first lap it was already split, and I didn't kind of believe that if it came to a group I could win from a sprint. So then with 2 laps to go I attacked, and then I saw I did have a gap, and I started to believe that maybe if it all stayed together then I'd have a chance. And just the last time off I just went full gas, didn't look behind, and I actually couldn't believe that I won.
I could tell when you crossed the line. You were shaking your head in disbelief. All eyes, of course, were on Anna because she's in fantastic form, so you knew you had to attack her to have a chance. Yeah,
because this short climb is kind of her specialty, I think. She's so strong, and obviously in such good form and winning the TT. I thought it'd be hard to beat her, so I just thought I had to get ahead of it. But I'm so happy.
Let's just rewind a bit because the weather forecast wasn't great. It's been raining non-stop during the race today. When you hit those cobbles for the first time, any nerves at all about it being slippy?
I actually love racing in the rain, and I'm kind of more of a classics rider, so I spend my whole season in Belgium racing on wet cobbles, and doing Roubaix a few weeks ago.
Wetter the better.
That set me up good for this because these aren't quite Roubaix cobbles, so it felt fine actually.
Well, look, brilliant racing today. As I say, both jerseys under 23 and elites, and hugely well deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Oh, very eloquent Piper Georgie there. Just echoing what we all thought, and including Matt. It was it was just complete and utter disbelief. But I mean, just to sum up before we leave, I mean, a wonderful race, a great advert for the sport again. This is becoming quite normal, isn't it? The racing is at its most. It's never been too entertaining, I don't think.
We're at the pinnacle, aren't we? This is the racing is such a high standard, and as we saw today, the race was taken on very, very early. We saw that select group of riders go, and throughout, any one of those 12 riders in that leading group could have taken the victory today. So showing the strength in depth of the riders within Great Britain, the talent pool that is coming through from the under-23 level, as we've seen 2 under-23s on the elite podium. We're in such a strong position, and it's wonderful to see. It's tremendous.
Well, Hannah, thanks very much indeed for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have your company for the race. I'll see you soon. I'm going to go away now for a quick cup of tea, but please do stick around because at 1 p.m. we will have the final event of the British Championships this year. It is the British Elite Men's Road Race Championship, also incorporating, should I say, the under-23s. Alongside me for that will be Adam Blythe. So join us in about 15 to 20 minutes. But for now, from Lincoln, from me and Hannah, it's goodbye. But see you in a bit.
So our riders of the race convoy up and rolling. The art conference on the way, just getting a double check on that confirmation. So the riders are rolling the way down. Got to say a big thank you to all of our race HQ throughout the